Man. All right. Sorry, everyone. Bryan said he was gonna host maybe 2 hours ago. I forgot what it was. An hour and a half. And he said 30 minutes. Go and start it. And I go, all right. I'll take a little power nap. Power nap ended up until now. Hey, Bram, how's it going? Sorry about that. I should have used that 30-minute break to get some coffee rather than taking a power nap.
That's all right, man. I totally understand.
No. Why? So Michael has all kinds of IT stuff he's trying to talk to me about, and I'm going, there's some people that would understand what the hell you're talking about.
Not me. I have no clue.
No. You're all worked out. No.
Yeah, I'm kind of burnt out right now.
It's okay. It wasn't anything big. He was just. What were you talking about?
Right now,
I don't know. Ubuntu and I don't know.
He's putting Linux on my old Mac. He's trying to pick between which kind of Linux we'll be putting on said Mac.
I don't know. So he's talking to me, and I'm going, like I have no idea what he's saying.
I don't mess with Macs. I just.
Oh. Okay.
She's talking about a Linux distribution, though.
Yeah, but I don't.
Come on, just say whatever that was.
So at this point, I'm trying to decide which distro that I'm going to put on here.
Yeah.
Go with Ubuntu. Ubuntu just seems to be less. I don't know, less buggy. Ubuntu will go on just about anything.
Well, what are you trying to do?
Yeah. So that's the main point. So at work, we're pretty much. I'm adminning 30 to 50 Amazon Linux AMI boxes in AWS. So that's going to be a RHEL CentOS variant. And then on top of that, and I'm not sure why they made this architectural choice, but they're running Docker containers. And within the Docker container, our app runs in Ubuntu in the Docker container on Amazon Linux. So don't know why those architectural decisions were made, but that's my reality. So if I want to install something in the EC2, I yum it. And if I want to install something on the inside the Docker container, I have to apt-get it.
Okay.
So lovely architecture, but it's what I inherited.
Thank you for absorbing this.
Yeah, you saved her.
What the hell is he talking about?
So
okay.
On the laptop right now, I just installed Solus from the Solus project.
Okay.
So it's running the Budgie desktop, and it's its own thing. Ike, the maintainer's got his own, package management system.
Okay.
And it slid on this Mac great. Runs like greased lightning. It's really nice. It's very pretty. But I just heard that in the next version of Bud, and this is a rolling release distro. So, you never have to really upgrade again unless you're doing something really serious. But he's changing Budgie to, instead of operating on the GNOME stack, he's moving it to Qt.
Okay.
Big giant architectural change, and I've never really been a fan of all the Qt applications. I've never been a KDE guy. I just can't get into it. So I get this installed, and I read the post of he's changing it over to Qt. So I'm like, well, there goes that idea. So I'm pulling this back off. And I'm either going to go with probably Manjaro, or maybe Ubuntu GNOME, because Ubuntu is now going to drop Unity and go with GNOME 3.
Okay.
So that was the latest news I've heard out of those guys. But then Ubuntu, big corporation, from Canonical, and do I want to stay with one of the little guys? Yeah.
Are you dying yet?
Kelly.
I'm sorry. I'm just like, why are you trying to tell me this?
I mean, it seems like you know what you want, so I don't think.
Well, so the
I
thing
would
is,
help out really.
honestly, the main thing I want is probably to install about 5 different distros on here and see how it runs on the Mac. Get a feel for it, and then pick one of them out of those 5 after I test drive them for about a week apiece.
What version of a Mac do you have?
Well, so I had the latest Touch Bar one, but
Abby's stealing it.
well, I'm giving it to her because at work I've got to support these little Dells that run Windows 10.
Okay.
So now that I've moved to this startup, I am one of the 2 IT people in the place. So if the other person doesn't know how to fix it, I inherit it as the one who has to finally solve the problem. So we ran into a situation where Windows 10 wouldn't run any updates anymore. So I blew away all the cache under Windows Update and rebuilt all that, and it still wouldn't. So we hot swapped with another laptop. I got it installed and set up for her, and then I took the one that was the problematic one and re-imaged it and made sure it worked, and took it to my own because I have been a Mac user. And I had never until recently actually sat down and daily used Windows 10. So I have to support it, so I have to run it so I can learn how to support it. So I'm cursing on a daily basis of, why did they make it so hard to SSH out of this thing? Give me a real SSH client. So I just installed the Windows subsystem for Linux, so I've at least got a bash shell and can use a real open SSH client. So that's the summary of what I've done for fun for the past 2 days. This is outside a really, really long series of installing or upgrading our platform on a test environment and then pushing it out to production. And we just finished that up today. Tomorrow we're going to go through all the QC that we have to do on it and make sure it's ready to release come Monday morning to the customer that we upgraded.
Oh, got it. You have Mac hardware running Linux software so you can run a Windows VM.
Yeah, eventually I'll just put Windows.
See, Abby gets it a little bit.
Hey, that's the best way to go.
Yeah,
One time I hacked a Windows video game to make it work on my Mac, and it worked.
What video game?
I don't remember what it was called, but it was by Perfect World. It was like one of those anime fantasy ones.
Okay.
Yeah, so she actually managed to get Wine running on her Mac.
Okay.
And get this game running in Wine, and that bottle was no longer supported, and she managed to look up how to kind of tweak it to get it running.
I did it.
Yeah, so it was pretty impressive. I would have gone, I've got to run this game.
Well, see, this was a
14?
yeah. Well, I guess I don't remember who it was that said like if you don't have didn't grow up with a lot of money, but you had like computers and stuff that you could spend a lot of time doing that, right? So I don't know. This was those years where I was really sick and Abby was stuck in the house. So yeah, she just I don't know. She got on the computer and.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, we had a Commodore 64, and or my brother did.
Oh yeah, my dad had one there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't find one of the floppy disks to play any of the games, so I was just stuck with this book of programming in Commodore 64. So it's like, oh well, I don't got anything else to do.
Right, and now you made a career out of it.
Well, I don't know if it's a career out of it, but it got me into.
That's really old. What year did those come out?
I remember I must have been at least 5 when I started getting into it, because my brother it was his computer, so I would just be watching him play, and then when he wasn't on, I would get on, and so I didn't get to play a lot, but at least that, you know, I don't think I would have understood if it was on my own. So it helped that, you know, he did everything and I just watched him, and then when he was off, I just did whatever I wanted on it.
Was that load star dot star comma 8 comma 1 or whatever to get the disk to load?
Yes, something like that. I
can't
believe you remember that.
Dungeons & Dragons floppy, you know, the Pool of Radiance floppy disk.
Oh yeah, I remember playing Pool of Radiance all the time.
Which was awesome.
Bard's Tale series. There's Legacy of the Ancients was one of the obscure ones.
Yeah, if you go back just a little bit further behind that, there was Wizardry.
I never played any of the Wizardry.
They
were expensive games. They were like, if I remember correctly,
they cost almost what games cost now, and this was like, you know, one graphic and some text scrolling in A to B. You know?
Yeah.
But it was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And I always remembered as like the next version of a game. It's like, wow, look at the graphics. And and it was just
like, how can it get any better than this?
Yeah.
And then a year later, it's like, you know.
Yeah.
And now today, it's like, you know, that's like, you know, they're making 8-bit ties and 8-bit flowers to sell on ThinkGeek. That.
Yeah.
You know.
Those were the days.
You know, what I was talking to her about earlier is that, you know, how we have a lot of worries now about, you know, all these companies collecting our data and whatnot, right? Mm-hmm. And you think about that when you talk about Facebook and Google and all these the major companies out there, and even a whole lot of the small ones. But you don't think about that when you hit the Linux world. So I was reading, and this is how bad I've been geeking out lately. I was reading Richard Stallman's webpage. He's got a kind of political commentary that he puts out these like little one-liners, and he's doing his website, you know, in Emacs, you know, editing straight HTML. You know, he's not using anything fancy. He's doing it old school. You know, yeah. I'd be smart too.
You text everything.
But he linked out to an article that was on gnu.org. About how at one point in the recent past, Canonical, so the makers of Ubuntu, had set it up where the search feature in Ubuntu was actually sending your search results back to Canonical. And which you would never think of, you know, one of the main Linux guys, you know, players of the Linux game doing that. And he basically called them out on gnu.org for that, and basically said, that's malware, you know, pure and simple. And, you know, he paints everything as black or white. It's either, you know, I can run a ThinkPad X60 that's got a max of 3 gigs of RAM because it's the only one I can put an open BIOS on. You know, I can put Core Boot on that. So that's the only laptop I'll run. And it's limited to like 60 gigs of hard drive space and, you know, who knows what old, you know, hardware this actually is, right?
Yeah.
I think it's 7, 8 years old. But, you know, that's how much of a purist he is. But, you know, it's really, really odd to think about even Linux companies collecting stuff that you're searching on, and who knows what they're going to do with it. Are you know, you don't know. I mean, there's really nothing in, are they going to sell your data? You know, you have this innate layer of trust, and nobody still reads all the EULAs. Well, somebody in the Linux community is reading every word of it.
Yeah.
Just in case. But apparently, they've now, at some point since this was published, put a, you know, like a toggle in there to turn that off. You know, so the open source community is watching it and making sure that that moves. But it was a very interesting read about how even the good guys are starting to collect stuff.
Yeah. And
so I'm going to stop geeking out now.
oh, no, that's fine.
regular scheduled program.
I'm just wondering, honey, if they have the same looks on their faces like I get, that means, oh my God.
Am I blurry?
Yeah, you guys deal with this all.
Snark.
Okay. Hi, Snort. Are you all
Sorry, my focus is out, or is it? I'm just blurry. All right, sorry.
No, you're good. I just have a little bit of a halo here. It's the reflection off the ball board.
Yeah, I had to wear my gun R's just so it doesn't hurt my eyes. I'm just kidding.
If I get the reflection right here.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the feedback system. I mean, gathering information is just typically meant to help with any software issues, bugs, drivers,
Absolutely.
all this other stuff.
So that's why I put that in there about, Stallman, who paints everything is completely and totally black or white, going, it's reporting something back, so it's evil.
Yeah. But then it's hard because you're just pretty much trusting that the data that they're collecting is that. If there's additional data that's somehow gathered and you're suspecting that, hey, that, it seems fishy to gather that data, and then just knowing the reason why they might be collecting that, it's just another assumption. But you start getting to that slippery slope. I mean, it's right. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say it's black or white, but it's a not so sexy shade of gray, I guess you could say.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so I'll pose the question really fast to Snort to see if he has a preference. Snort, do you have a Linux preference?
Actually, I used to use multiple flavors of Unix in the past. And right now, what I prefer to use is what's most popular. I like to be a small fish in a big ocean, that I don't have to be unique. So that something goes wrong or somebody learns something beside me, the kids are just brilliant. And there's always another language every 6 months to learn and whatever. And frankly, I just cannot learn them all fast enough. So I enjoy the fact that I can ask my kids for help, and they often can know things that I haven't had a chance to learn. Python, for instance, that wasn't a language back when I was programming.
Yeah.
So for me, it's what do I use the computer for? If I'm trying to learn something to do something in computers, I've already been there. I've been in every part of computers, from making the semiconductor all the way through writing the assembly manuals for factories and training the technicians. So that's a pretty broad background. I don't really want to play with computers to play with computers, and so I'm really not into the Linux. Mostly I have end uses. And end uses means it's somebody else's software. And right now, the majority of that is in applications for Windows. Not that Macs don't have some good things, not that Linux don't have some good applications. I'm just at that age of my life where I like somebody else to cook.
Yeah, well, so I had been doing the sysadmin gig. I left that about 7 years ago and was doing more process and project management. And recently found myself with an opportunity to kind of do that and go back into some sysadmin work. So I'm kind of retooling back into the Linux world and the cloud, Amazon-based, Linux world, which is vastly different from, mainly we had a Solaris environment when I left it, and we were just really started rolling with Red Hat and just started virtualizing some things when I got out. And so I'm really having to retool hard. So I guess like I said a bit ago, I'm probably going to just run through and install like 5 different flavors and give it all a spin and see what I've learned by breaking it and fixing it. But anyway, if I make a decision, I'll report back and let you know what crazy flavor I picked.
But I also tend to go back to the rock, down below the OS level. Still, machine language to me was always the most efficient. You knew what you had to get done, and you could get it done. And if it was an embedded application, sometimes that meant no OS at all. You just said, these are what I'm going to do in these steps. And you would have a very fast system that ran just what it needed to be. And we called them one-trick ponies. And they did what they did, and they did it well.
Right. Yeah, I didn't do so hot in the my assembler class.
Me either.
Kelly said me either. All right. I will turn it back over to the boss here.
Well, I would personally stick with no. If you can convince your partner to keep it that way. I mean, it seems to be your preference too.
Yeah, so I'm probably the next one I'm going to run is I'm going to put a Ubuntu's GNOME variant on there
and
see how that runs.
I mean, just pushing updates, right? That's the main goal.
Yeah, for me, it's you know, I'm mainly keeping the box updated, keeping it solid, keeping Nginx running and a Ruby environment running so they can do their thing.
I don't see why you have to go all the way and switch.
Oh, I'm just playing around on my box to get back into it.
Yeah, trust me, I don't get. I'm like out of it. I think before my daughter was born is when I last used a real Linux distribution to actually fool around in. But so I'm out of date. Which is horrible.
Yeah, I haven't had anything running on here in a while. I've been happily sitting in user land for quite a long time. So we'll see how it goes.
And it's what's funny is as we get older, it's getting worse. Like when we were younger, we could catch on quick, but now everything just seems like, oh really, they got this going? I'm like, oh.
I don't think that's it at all, Ebon. It has gotten more complicated. It just has.
Yeah. And I always feel more comfortable. Well, I don't have the latest and greatest stuff, especially my laptops are all old too. So the newest laptops, I don't feel like using a Linux distribution on them. But they also are kind of limiting what you can do, especially with even USB sticks. It's getting a little bit more difficult to put. I don't know what you call it. I guess normal operating systems to run on a stick. I know I had some problems on certain USB drives where I couldn't install. I had to really not unformat, but just fool around with the USB stick to make it work, and that just was like an extra level of BS I didn't want to deal with. But you can do it. It's just really pain in the butt. It's how companies are just making it harder for people to do things like that. Anyways,
that's why I got the extra challenge of trying to do all this on a Mac, just to make it fun.
So now you know what keeps the lights on around here.
No, that's what gets in the way from actually doing my real work.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. Thinking about the Commodore 64, I think we've talked about how I think I have this aversion. So I only lived with my biological father for a year, and he was very much a just tech, not able to talk to people. And anyway, I was just a very active kid, and I didn't want to be inside on a computer. And he was pushing me I remember the Commodore 64. So I think I developed an aversion to it or something. So he talks to me, and I'm just like, what? Please, I know some people. Tell them about it. So thank you. You understand what he's saying. I mean, it's not that I couldn't learn it, but I just don't. I'm not going to spend he knows how to do it.
But it was actually really nice. I mean, even though we played a lot outside, I broke in for a second. Me and my brother, while we're waiting for the games to load, and I'm telling you, it took minutes, sometimes up to like 10 minutes for it to load like a disc.
Oh yeah.
For a certain level. So we would talk, and we would. It was great because nowadays things load so fast. You're constantly playing, right? Now it's just you're just immersed into it. The loading times are like down to a few seconds, if any, and if you're with someone else, you really don't have time to just talk about stuff. You're just playing all the time. And so me and my brother would always talk about, like, what should we do? You know, we're planning ahead. We're looking at our maps that we've made. You know, what areas didn't we check and things like that.
When you pull out disc 3 of 8.
Yeah. And then you got the security wheel. Eventually they got to the point where, you know, they don't want you just copying games from other people for free. Yeah, so you have to have this little wheel where it says insert disc 3 and what is, you know, this outer wheel, middle wheel, and then inner wheel. But anyways, what I was trying to say is having to wait in games way back in the day, you know, if you're playing with other people, you talked a lot, and that's one of the things missing now, is people are more busy playing the game than they don't really talk too much.
Well, that's what they make Mumble for now, right?
Well, I'm
just joking.
When people do talk, it's more just to either piss other people off that are, you know, that they're listening, right? Or just it's just more of being jerks to other people, or other kids, I guess, that are playing. Like, no one really just kind of goes on and talks like us. It'd be like if we were gamers and we're just on, it would just be, you know, saying Trumpisms or what have you, and just maybe just saying racist remarks just to get a rise out of people. Basically trolling, you know. That's not the old school trolling, but like the new, just get people riled up type of trolling.
I turn off all that. I turn off all that chat shit on the games. So I don't even care if I'm standing next to a teammate, you know, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. You know, like if I play with my son, we'd like Skype in together on a separate thing and just do it that way.
Yeah.
So that we can either, you know, so that we could talk without like 8,000 people talking over us. So.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna switch off. You guys hopefully talk about something that Kelly would want to participate in. No, I'm just gonna get some fruit and drinks, and then I'll probably be on chat. I might come back on if I like a topic, but
okay.
Right on.
I don't know
hey, well, maybe I'll save it for when you come back then, because did you guys see that? Actually, Greg sent it to me. It was that Anonymous, which I don't really know what to think about Anonymous, but that clip about, like, it had all this stuff to do with Bitcoin, and I don't know, but I know you know some about that. And Michael,
I was gonna take a look, and I didn't. Sorry.
Maybe we can do it later then, or it just has to do with the the sanctions, and like basically this is like war. I don't know. The economy, and I don't know.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it's a direct all-out war. It seems like it's a Cold War 2.0, not necessarily to the extent of like nuclear weapons stuff. It's just a lot of I would say. Well, I want to watch it first. I don't want to assume.
Yeah, just watch it. It's not that long, but it's interesting.
All right. Anyways, if it gets back to this topic, I'm gonna watch it and then I'll cop back on.
Okay.
All right.
Right on.
How's everybody?
Oh, groovy.
Everybody feeling better? Snort. And Broken. How are you doing?
Yeah, come see, come saw, you know.
Yeah. So who else here? Stevie's here and we're sleeping. Where did James go? I saw him in the chat. Maybe he's coming on later. So yeah, that was my big thing is still just stuff about Russia, and I've been reading a lot of consortium news and let's
There's a
see.
spider in the shower. Can you help me?
There's a spider in the shower.
Dad?
Okay, hang on just a second, Abby.
I stepped in the shower and turned the water on.
Oh, there's James with no shirt.
It's hot out here.
Okay.
It's fucking hot, man.
Humid and muggy. It feels like Florida.
Ugh.
Pilates. I've been doing Pilates because I
Look
can't.
at
Right
that.
on.
Muscle, it's like it's gonna be like that big.
Who, me? Look,
How big those arms are.
I know. I used to be very athletic, but the spinal fluid leak kind of sidelined me. But I've been doing Pilates because you can do most of the exercise you do on your back. So you're flat, but you're, working all your muscles. So I've been trying that. Come on, we're showing muscles.
Yeah, I ran out.
Like from here up is fine, but like from here down is really good.
I thought you were doing the haka there for a second.
Tomote. Oh, don't even get me started on that, bro.
So it's Friday. We're a little loose here.
Yeah, it's just freaking hot. Bram, it's hot. It's like, it's not that it's hot, it's just that it's really humid. It's like,
It's really humid and muggy.
I'll get my shirt on in a sec. I was just gonna, thought I'd get in the mood for an evening
That's okay.
after hours. Or, sorry, anything.
That's what I said, quite a while ago. I was like, why does that sound familiar? And then when I was watching the Putin interviews on Showtime, I got a free trial so I could watch it. And I'm like, oh, after hours. Oh, that's like the adult entertainment thing on Showtime. So some people might stumble across us on YouTube and be really, really disappointed.
Yeah, like,
Well, anything goes isn't exactly a non-porn kind of thing too. So
Exactly, right.
yeah, I think we're still PG-13, right?
I think for the most part, yeah.
Funny. Anyway.
I got a big ass stand like right here. Just I had the AC on forever. That bill gets huge at the end of the month.
What is that sound?
What is that?
It's my roommate, the gamer.
Okay.
Okay.
I think he's playing Path of Exile.
Oh, okay. What do you
It's like-
do you live
it's
in
like
a
Diablo.
frat house or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
We're lambda, lambda, lambda.
That makes a lot of sense.
I believe it, James.
Where's Booger? Is Booger coming on?
Booger. Who's Booger?
Forget it.
Never mind.
Oh, come on.
Oh, right. Sorry. I get it.
I could Bram's cracking up right now, dude. Like, what the fuck? Oh, it's funny. No, it's wild because it's just gaming, and it's just, oh my god. I do the same thing. Damn 12-year-olds kicking my ass at this game.
just sounded like he was making monkey noises.
If you saw, he looks like a gorilla. But did anybody find out anything about gas? I know what Bitcoin is, and what's the other thing?
I don't know. It's in that anonymous video, which anonymous is one of those things that I don't really know what to make of. I don't know.
That's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
It's okay, you know. We just need to pick a war with the guy, a place that has 7,000, nuclear warheads just ready to go, and we only have like 6. I think that's good.
It's just really good for business on both sides. They got to the point where they can't run this terrorism game anymore.
Yeah.
They basically, neither side can BS their respective countries into believing that they can't beat the third world guys rattling sabers anymore. We can no longer push and pick on the brown people. So therefore, we really need to go back to, well, everybody likes the return of an old villain, right?
Yeah.
So now we get the old villain coming back. Everybody's comfortable. We like this old villain. And it's great for the arms guy, dealers on both sides.
Yeah. People are going to make money, and of course, other people will die.
Well, and also, I mean, hell's bells. It's not even a Cold War. They've been working. The Democrats been working the bellows. The whoever. Whoever we want to call them, whether we want to call them the, deep state or whatever you want to call it, just, sort of a system of leaks strategically placed that, could happen to any president, which is the sort of unsettling part of it. Yeah. But in that it's happening to Trump, I don't know if that's all bad either. I'm just sure, whether everything isn't sort of working the way it's supposed to some extent. So, but what is calculator?
Who knows?
That's more than just a calculator.
He understood. I don't know.
What is it? I'm curious.
It's the computer that was issued to shuttle pilots. It knew where all the satellites was, kept them in constant, knew how to operate all the systems on the computer, so that there was 5 computers on the space shuttle, and the 5 computers would vote, and if their votes came up and one of them was different, they would shut that one off. And then if another one disagreed, they'd shut that one off. If the others disagreed, they would turn on that calculator. And that calculator would be used to land the spacecraft.
Wow.
You mean that calculator?
Yeah. Well, not that one. That was mine.
Far out.
But that's so
that model
calculator isn't really the term.
So are you saying that small of a unit? You guys, there was something that immense entrusted in that smaller piece of a technology.
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing.
This is before Whitney. Hewlett Packard used to make fantastic equipment. I have 2 more, or actually I have 3 more. I have one that can solve calculus in 2 dimensions at one time, and that was my wife's. I've got a 41C, which was the original one issued for the shuttle. And I have a 48G, which was the last one issued for the shuttle. In the 48G, the biggest problem they had with it is people were stealing them to steal Jeeps because they could take over Jeeps back in the 90s. they could. If you had one on and you did the right coding, you could learn the codes to steal any Jeep just by waiting for somebody to unlock their car. And then
very cool.
So they're very powerful machines. And then what's her name took over Hewlett Packard, and everything that came out of there was a piece of garbage.
Oh, Fiorina?
Yeah.
Yeah, Carly Fiorina. That's right. I was thinking Whitney, but it's Carly. And any piece of extremely important equipment for making computers and everything used to be Hewlett Packard.
Yeah.
Even in an IBM factory, we had Hewlett Packard equipment. And that's what one stupid person can do to a major company that really isn't a corporation. It was a national asset, and just trashed it by her thought of, well, what taking all this money for national defense projects, but she really declined the ability for us to maintain our national security system.
Right.
So, earlier I tweeted out, I know, Broken, you responded to it. It's a great article. I love consortium news, but just kind of about what's going on with Russia and the sanctions. And let's see, I put it in the chat on YouTube. It's titled "How the World May End" by John Pilger.
Oh, yeah. I read that one.
Yeah, so he's let's see. Yeah, this is the way the world ends, not with a bang but a whimper. But anyway, it's a big long thing. But one of the most profound quotes, I think, was about here, let me correct it a little bit. They're talking about like how each generation, it says a lobotomy is performed on each generation. Facts are removed. Basically just about war and about what we've done around the world. But then he says, Trump is mad, a fascist, a dupe of Russia. And then actually this quote is from Luciana Bone. I'm not sure who that is. Let's see. He is also a gift for, quote, liberal brains pickled in the formaldehyde of identity politics. I thought that was pretty profound quote there.
That's pretty descriptive.
Yeah. But anyway, I love their coverage on all this stuff. Oh, did you found stuff about blockchain? I don't know, Michael, didn't you have something about that? It'd be good if Ebon comes back. Maybe you guys can all.
Well, you're saying something about Texas Instruments. We had an old computer. It was one of the first home computers that was a Texas Instruments. I don't remember what the number was.
It was a TI 98-4A. My dad sold them.
Yes, that's it. Where it was like two games. We had Larry the Lounge Lizard, I think you could play on it, and there was some submarine game, and that was like the two games he had for it. But yeah, that was sort of bizarre. I mean, it was so cool though. And then my sister showed me a laptop when they first came out.
That's my
hard case. It was a hard case, and it was a little thing, and she flipped it open, and all of a sudden there was like it had like a I don't know, little video that was put on by the company to show how cool the graphics were and stuff. And it was still like really crummy graphics, but it was cool. I mean, all that sort of time watching. I mean, we did the first computer I worked on was stacking cards, punching go to, and putting in the right numbers for it, and getting the card and putting it in the, having the stack cards. And if you fucked them up, you could go through them and read them all, but it was a real pain in the ass to do it. But now, I don't know. I'm on a Xbox and a telephone and an iPad, and an old iPad, like, I don't know, one of the first ones. Not the first one, but like the second generation or something.
Yeah.
Not my department, obviously.
Well, I mean, nothing I've got is real high tech, man. It's all low tech stuff, so that it's got to be user friendly for me.
That's okay. You were busy having goats and stuff like that. You know, it takes all of us to do different things. You know.
Back in the 60s, we had to make them with little ICs, integrated circuits. They look like centipedes, and you'd put them down on a board. You'd have to burn your own board, and troubleshooting and learning to solder at age 9 was a bit of a challenge, but I got it. Very simple. But it was so much easier to learn as computers grew than I think that what kids have to face today with all the technology thrown on them at once.
But I think they grow into it slowly too. It's like riding bicycles or something, by the time you really master a bicycle, it's time to take on the car. I mean, you're always sort of changing through life, but the kid sort of gets the basics down, understands rules of the road and stuff, and then goes to the car, that kind of thing. So
yeah. I thought of going around to high schools demonstrating how the computers work on the inside with ping pong balls and tubes, because I worried that they've completely lost the visual part of what was going on. And you could
that's a great idea.
Mimic a computer with white pieces of paper. And just the functions to add two numbers together just requires an enormous amount of gates. But if you get a crowd of 300 kids, you could each get them to hold up a card and break down a number and transmit it across the room, and somebody else able to decode the number by what was. And I think that would be a learning experience to them to understand that it's not all magic. Something is happening behind there. It's concrete, and even our society, we need at least a few thousand of those people a year that still understand that. And I feel that we're all dying.
Hi, you guys. It's Amy.
Hey, Amy.
I don't know if it's
Hi, Amy.
I was actually kind of curious about this because I don't know. I'm not young, but I'm also not younger. So, and I'm completely technologically illiterate, but I used to be a librarian. So I find that getting information now is a lot more difficult. What our sources now are a lot more difficult with technology. That's something I think is very problematic. So I'm not sure what that role has to play with it. Me having to actually learn to use technology or what we have to pay for information. I mean, one of the that wasn't really my point, but one of the saddest things that we're going through now with net neutrality and everything, and I think Kelly was talking a week ago about Schwartz, who hung himself in Brooklyn, who is really a genius, tried to steal information from MIT that should be publicly available. And as a lawyer, I believe court cases, I believe especially court cases or litigation should be publicly available. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you want, I mean, I'm not a scientist, but perhaps there are scientists who feel that scientific information should be also publicly available and not paid for, because I mean, that's a huge problem. This poor kid who hung himself in Brooklyn, probably because he was facing these charges, did so much for, and I truthfully, I know nothing about technology, but as a little kid, he was pioneering sort of technology before my time, after my time in his age, but just incredibly. And to put him in that situation to me was a serious tragedy.
Absolutely. Yeah, watch the documentary on that. It's, man, I knew about it.
I think I saw one. I'm not sure if
I mean, I knew of the story, but I just didn't know any of the details. And when you watch that, it's just for me, it's just more of the same of our government trying to put the brakes on us accessing information.
And this all took place when Obama was in office.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
A lot bad happened when Clinton was in office too.
It did.
The technology being publicly available, you have to remember what different pools of technologies are out there. You've got the general pool of information that you'll see in public patents, where if you invent something, you have to describe how it works, why it works, prove that that your theories for that are valid to get your patent. Then a lot of industry will not patent what you do. Instead, they choose to keep it as a trade secret because they do not want the public to understand or what's out there. And then there's the layers where you don't want some people to know that. I mean, it's horrible when you're in a meeting and you discover that you've mentioned a Pandora, something that you have doubts that have you just unleashed something on the world that is bad. I mean, real bad. And the Pandoras should not be public.
Yeah, but this idea that, our government tries to say, oh, all, for example, WikiLeaks and Chelsea Manning stuff, it's all for our protection. That's just nonsense, obviously.
Well, again, it goes all the way back to Roswell. Roswell's brilliance was not the air crash that everybody looks at. It was the science that was learned and the group, this other organization that's in charge of psychological warfare, that said, we've got a gold mine here. Again, the Roswell story is that a bunch of aliens fell. And what happened was they were prepping for a project that they didn't want anybody to know about. And they needed to get a test done at 100,000 feet. And back then, getting something to 100,000 feet quietly was not an easy thing to do. And they had to use new technologies like aluminized foil for the envelope to lift it, which looks like what they called back then tin foil. Nobody had any idea of anything else. They needed to simulate bodies, and engineers sometimes are not good artists, and they set them to automatically release and fall at 100,000 feet to see what problems a body has falling at that atmosphere, at that height, going 3,000 miles an hour. And so first of all, that guy that did that trick, whatever, somebody else had already been there, done that decades ago.
Are you talking about the Red Bull guy that jumped up out of the capsule?
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
But anyway, so the test, basically crash test dummies that they dropped out, that they didn't even try to make them look human. But the original story was going to be when it failed. I mean, they have these stories thought up beforehand of what they're going to say, and the weather balloon, and it was very close to a weather balloon, so it was a very plausible story that was a weather balloon. But people saw the envelope pieces, and they saw the test crash dummies that didn't look human, and immediately they started calling their local radio station saying, we see this metal, like no metal you've ever seen before. It weighs nothing. It doesn't crinkle like tin foil, but it's thinner than tin foil. And they said they've got all these miracle things going on, but they were technologies that were necessary for this test. So the military's first response was, they're not going with the script. They're supposed to buy the story that this was a weather balloon gone bad. And, you know, people are saying instrumentation on this, it's got devices on board that you just would not have in a weather machine. And they're like, no, it was definitely a weather machine. And they found out the more that they argued against it, the more that the people started saying they're aliens. We know they're aliens. And pretty soon there was no mention of anything other than it was aliens. They totally obliterated. The world had developed a better cover story than what they could do. And when they suddenly realized it, they said, oh, we have a lot more programs we could use this phenomena on. And they did as well, through the U2s up to the A12s. And the A12s is where it really became fun. The A12s looked identical to an SR-71. Not the shape of any type of aircraft at the period of time. And in order to get the Habu patch on the pilot's jacket, they had to fool someone into thinking that they were a UFO. And the most common route was between Hawaii and Japan. They would fly up over the back of an aircraft, so that the pilots would only the pilots, because of the unique view that they have, would suddenly see something that looked like a saucer slipping up in front of their aircraft. And I'm not seeing that there yet, but the pilots then would radio in that they saw a UFO, and they were greeted like they seriously saw a UFO, and they said, we don't want you to describe the UFO you saw to anybody. But of course, they knew there were going to be leaks, and they knew that everybody over the radio heard it. This is why Project Blue Book was created. If they wanted to hide that some new test aircraft was going to have some kind of body on it, they would make sure that there was UFO sightings with that type of body style or whatever feature that they wanted to hide. And Blue Book would be asking people, did you see green lights? Because the other thing is sometimes when the A12's engines would fail, they would have to restart them. And when they restarted them, there would be this immense green glow coming out of the back of them, shooting out, and the pilots would be saying, it was like no jet engine we ever saw. They were propelled by green lights, and they went away at thousands of miles an hour. And just, nothing physically possible. And there was no way in the mind of those pilots that they saw anything other than a UFO, as no other jet fuel looked like that aircraft's jet fuel. And then they'd be gone. Just they had no problems accelerating straight up, which at that time no other jet was really known to do, not for that many hundreds of thousands of feet or tens of thousands of feet. Even everything that was done since then was, what can we do to fuel the conspiracy theories? So whenever I look at anybody looking at many of the different things, I say, okay, that looks like they're being blue booked. And I really saw this with 9/11, with so many of the conspiracy theories that were coming out. The yellow powder everywhere that was said to be from different types of things, highly caustic. Well, that yellow powder is also what you get when you burn gypsum at high temperatures. And, there's no mention of, okay, what are the normal byproducts of a fire that intense going down? What are the properties of the building that was hit? I personally still believe that there's no way that the Bush administration was not involved. I also can't believe that the Clinton administration wasn't involved.
Really? I don't actually know anything about that. I do know. I know I actually know a girl who died on one of the planes, and I know what. Well, I don't even know. I didn't even walk by the site while it was being. I couldn't believe people would want to go and see that, but people just touristed to Ground Zero, and over all of my years as being a New Yorker, I just couldn't even go. Like I didn't even go. I didn't see it. I didn't want to see it, but I guess that's me avoiding stuff if I can. And I'm just like a block away, but I know that there's other buildings that are going to block me from, from where I'm going to see what I'm going to see. And other people went there on purpose. And I actually still haven't been to the museum. I do have a picture of the new One World Trade on my phone because I sent it to my mom because, she would have liked that or something. But I mean, it's just, I really never thought about people being involved. I've thought for a very, very long time about our just sort of interventionism in other countries and what that might lead to in a very general sense. I mean, if you provoke people or if you look at them as the bad guy, point the fingers at them, and then go start invading them and killing them and pretending it's about human rights when it's about oil, or putting a religion slant on it, there's going to be backlash. I mean, there's backlash from bad things that you do, and that's just what happens. And I actually didn't see and I don't know if it's true, and I don't know if it would trigger me or something, but I haven't really investigated into that.
Yeah. All the stand down.
Certainly our ties with Saudi Arabia have to stop for sure. And I want all of our interventions to stop because I think they can lead to bad things. I honestly don't know. But it was also unfathomable to me that an architect could build buildings that would just melt to the ground. Like that's your job. Like if that was my job, like I'm a lawyer or maybe a writer, but if that was my job, I'd want to know if something that I made was going to melt to the ground, right?
Yeah,
I would.
All,
I get that. I do get
I
that. I'm not a stupid person, but I don't know how much our administration was necessarily like personally involved in it, as in a severe amount of negligence, and also just dismissal about what's going to happen when you do all of these things in the first place. So I don't know that I have enough proof to accuse people, but they're not all innocent.
Well, let's go back to me the biggest issue of all. The second biggest issue is the stand down order. I don't think anybody can dispute that.
Yeah.
But something even bigger was there was some kind of rift between philosophy between Gore and Bill Clinton. Gore is the one that warned the Bush administration that the buildings were going to be attacked, not Bill Clinton. And that to me is something that was significant to me, is that I still view Gore as much more honorable than Bill Clinton. And I believe that Gore would not have wanted our people hurt. Even if he couldn't have said anything to us, he said it to the only people he could. And they said, go away, it's our administration now.
Actually, I was working at a library in Connecticut at the time, and actually one of the girls on the planes was a patron of the library with her grandmother. So that was, and I was actually sick that day. I was just sick. I was home, and I didn't have a TV. I had a computer, and I didn't have a TV. And I woke up, and I went on the internet, and I didn't have very good internet, even in Connecticut at that time, on my desktop. And I was like, what just happened? And me being me, I didn't even want to see it. I'm not a guy. I didn't want to see shit be bad. I just want to drive by, pretend it didn't happen. I'm going to pretend it didn't happen in my own mind anyway. But it was just like, what happened? And then the whole thing happened with Bush, and I was just like, well, where's the evidence of these WMDs? And then I had to go to BBC on the internet, and I didn't have regular TV, so I didn't know what they were saying. I didn't know what Al Gore was saying. I didn't know what Bill Clinton was saying. I didn't know what anybody was saying. So honestly, I can't attest. I'm going to take your word for that, Snork, because I don't know. All I did was be at a library. I saw the front page of the New York Times every day saying how there's WMDs, and then I would go online, and the only place I could go to be like, well, I don't want to get in this war is actually like from BBC. And I'm like, well, if England doesn't want to go to war with us, like maybe there's something wrong here. And then George Bush goes on TV and it's just like, well, Poland's our greatest ally. And I'm like, since when? And you can't even pronounce his name, George Bush, which was very weird. I saw that at work. Anyway, the whole thing was messed up. So honestly, I don't know. And if you tell me that Al Gore was like, I don't want to deal with that. Okay, well, I would actually very much support Al Gore then. And I also did when he did the environmental movie the first time. After that, he seemed to become a little bit of a lobbyist and an opportunist. From my point of view, I found him very hard to believe. After he was going the wrong direction, and it took him way too long to get on the single-payer bandwagon, Al Gore, from my perspective. It's nice to hear back then that he actually was the voice of reason, and I think so was Howard Dean for a certain extent of time, and it's just, that's moving in the wrong direction. Anyway, it's nice to hear that there was a voice on regular TV, which I didn't see. Happy to hear that, I guess. Didn't do much good, but...
It's just me, but I can't really buy that 9/11 was on purpose. I don't know. Other people know information, but... To me, I just think it's fairly obvious that we were attacked because of our policies. But as far as it being an inside job, I don't know. I kind of have categorized that with Pizzagate. Like it's just one of those things that I'm I don't know. I just don't go there. But this is totally kind of maybe inappropriate, but funny. Do you guys happen to remember? So I think it was Seth MacFarlane and Mark Wahlberg were both supposed to have been on flights that day.
Yes.
And Seth MacFarlane, always cracking jokes.
Oh, wow.
He said that he was supposed to be on one of the flights, and he later said it was no big deal. He always missed flights because he was always running late. But he actually missed the flight. I think he was headed to LA, so whichever plane that was, from Logan to LA. And he missed it because he was hungover. So he said, so drinking saved my life.
Wow.
You guys remember that? I don't know why.
I don't. I remember, I can't remember her name. I can see her grandmother in front of me, and she went with her mom on a flight to Disneyland, I think, and from Logan, and her father was going to meet her there later because he was still working, and he ended up not having a family after that, pretty much. It was really hard to believe, in I guess my neck of the woods, and it's just not. I can't even imagine if it was somebody who was related to me or friends. But I know so many people who had businesses, maybe even in Lower Manhattan and things, and that they shut down. They lost everything because of it. People here, they couldn't breathe. They couldn't live. They couldn't even breathe in Manhattan for the longest time. Nothing functioned. It was a really bad thing. Now, do I think that, and yet, and despite all that, when I saw George Bush stand in a pile of just debris from everything, screaming about how he wanted revenge on things. I'm like, this is not how to handle things. I mean, it's just not how to handle things. That's like how you handle shit if you're like a kid in a playground. It's just not even then you shouldn't. But apparently you should, because that's the only way you get by in life, is just beating up on the smaller guy. That's the way to go. I don't know why people teach us, you know, honesty or like integrity, or I don't even know why that's taught anymore, because those are not useful skills. And it's, well, it's sad that I feel that way, but clearly that's the way I feel.
Anybody else? Oh, you guys are nobody. You're West Coast. Everybody here.
I was actually my first time on a ship. It was the John F. Kennedy. We were getting ready for an exercise. We had a deployment, a world deployment coming up, because it was going to be the send off for the John F. Kennedy.
Oh,
And,
yeah, you had just joined. Or
yep.
something.
Yep, I had joined in February of 2001.
Jeez.
My first time on a ship. We had just finished stowing everything, and the captain of the ship told everybody to stop what they were doing and turn on the closed circuit TVs. And it was September the 11th, and yeah, it was surreal.
Mm-hmm.
That was my wedding anniversary.
Oh my gosh.
Oh God.
But
Damn.
that was 10 years. That's been done for 10 years. In any case, if here's the thing about 9/11, the more you, just like you find out about our politicians, just like you find out about our system, the deeper you dig into 9/11, the more you'll, for me, the more pissed off I got. And then it goes to a certain point to where I'm just like, you know what, I just can't handle this. Mm-hmm. And then I dig deeper, and then next thing you know, my total perspective, and it's all about perspective, just changed. And I've actually posted stuff and with a lot of people that are in the same realm of where I am, and I can't put it past a country that has, you know, been at war for 22 years out of the 240 years it's been around, killing over 20 million people in that amount of time. When you start adding all this stuff together, and then you know, war is a racket, and just keeps, it's just the dots, you know, I hate connecting dots, because dots lead to some pretty dark places. And this is a very dark place.
So, Abby Martin, I know that I read that she was kind of believed there was more to 9/11.
For sure.
Kind of changed her tune on that, I think, or changed her position on that.
No, she didn't.
I don't know.
I don't think she did.
It's just not something at that time. Let's see, I was 30, I think. I didn't pay that much attention. I mean, I paid attention to 9/11, but I wasn't so political like I am now. And
yeah, just be careful.
What you look at?
No, just what you find out, because just like, I mean, I'm talking to guys. I mean, I'm all my 4,803 friends on Facebook.
You've mentioned,
you know, the good majority of them are freaking are Schillering supporters. You know?
I'm sorry, Gina. I'm just looking at your naked shoulders.
Oh, sorry.
First of all, you talk about your friends on Facebook, and
I was hot. I had my shirt off, and then I didn't realize I had it off, and then next thing you know, I'm like, and then when I realized, I'm like, oh, I should just start flexing.
And then I started flexing.
And then she started. Then I'm like, damn, Kelly's got some guns.
I know. Well, my daughter was saying that. She's like, where does that come from? Like, I don't know. Yeah, at one time I benched 100. I really did.
Really? That is a lot.
No, yeah, I really did. And I'm like 5'3", 117 pounds.
Crap.
That's pretty impressive.
I don't know where. I don't know. I'm just muscular. My younger daughter is very much that way. She's a gymnast. We're just showing off here. Anyway, what were we saying?
Is that still up? Why is it still playing?
You must have been going back.
Oh.
We're gonna
don't look at my fat self. Yeah, I'll show you a picture that I kind of keep throwing out there, and then let's get over it. Let's get past. I just got to show you this picture, and I'm going to show you the diagram, and then you're going to go, huh? Just to raise a question. This is
how our conversations go. I mean, we go from
so
muscles to 9/11.
Let me go ahead and go over the diagram with all of you.
Okay.
So if you'll notice, this is where Tower 1 was. When you look at this is just a disturbing picture, period. So this is where Tower 1 was, and that's probably not the right color. I'll use pink is good. So this is where Tower 1 is. This is where Tower 2 was. Building 7 was way over here. And I think the distance here was maybe just under a half a mile. Maybe about a third of a mile. Just, a good distance from here to here. So the plane, to let you know, flew in from this direction.
Yeah.
Okay. Or kind of like maybe somewhere in this direction. And the other one I think came over here in this direction. But they're saying that the engine up here flew off somehow and landed way over here and burnt down this tower.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into the details of demolition, but I am going to tell you this. If you look, it's just none of it makes sense at all.
And the thing that just is, for me, is just the icing on the cake for this thing, is that they happen to find the passport for one of the terrorists on the ground after all this.
What?
Yes.
The engine I see is feasible because of the complexity of what was going on. The engine causing the fire on 7, I don't see as feasible.
No.
Yeah.
But how does a perfectly
people aren't used to the forces of something moving at that speed and the way that a building interacts. When you have a building that is hundreds of feet across and you have the floor collapsing in 100th of a second, I mean, all of the space evaporated out of that in 100th of a second. Clap your hands. Just feel the wind on your face. And imagine now that millions of cubic feet of air are being pushed out. It's the same as a car piston or whatever. The backside of an engine typically has 2 psi of force extra, or two times force extra. They call it Ebers 2. So the 2 psi at the radius of 6 feet on the back of a 747 engine. You take out the number of square inches at 2, and you multiply it, you get your thrust of what's going on. So suddenly you have this thrust vector that by then the jet engine was sitting in the floor and then blown out probably. I wouldn't expect it to actually have bounced off. But the forces that were involved in the collapse of that building would have been absolutely impossible for the normal person to imagine. And the things that can happen. Next time I'm in California, I'll actually demonstrate it for you.
Okay.
I promise. We'll get 2 cans of pop. You drop yours 10 feet away from me, and I'll drop mine, and it's going to hit yours.
Okay. All right. It's just what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that
it takes some analysis.
If it's going in this direction, the plane, and then lodging itself into the.
No, it wouldn't have lodged at that time. There was a period of time between the impact and the collapse.
Are you saying it fell out before?
No, I'm saying it fell out in the building. It would have came to a stop in the building. impact of the building with the concrete, it actually was just like Newton's cradle. It sent an image of the plane through the building, impacting, and what exited was powdered cement, the shape of the plane, of the nose, exited the building and then vaporized. We used it in some demonstrations for some industrial processes that I was involved in. And
I see.
so we had really good pictures, close-ups and everything of it exiting the building and entering the building. But once the plane entered the building, we had no pictures of it inside. At the speed it was going, it was near, and any secondary impacts would have made it even worse. It was near the speed that a force could propagate through metal. So most things that people can demonstrate by picking up a nail and bending it, these are not the same properties that you're used to working with.
Yeah, it's like at a certain speed, it's actually cutting through butter in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I understood that.
But
what about this hole, Snork? Remember we were talking about this hole? That's an interesting hole, right?
Yeah. And again, I think we've been blue booked so much on it that I'm pretty much only going with original data that I've known from experts that were actually there. And I think we have a lot to be revealed to us yet in the future.
Yeah.
And that so far, mostly what is revealed is wrong or misleading or outright blue booking.
So, Ebon's back.
Can I ask you guys a question? People who may have seen things that I didn't see about how maybe 9/11 is an inside job. Like I'm not dismissing it. I'm not saying anything about it because I don't really know. But I mean, as a general concept, I think American interventionism has caused a lot of our problems. Philosophically, even though I'm not a philosopher or anything like that, I'm just a literary person with a slightly legal background. So I just think that, then again, a literary person is what our entire economic system is based on, and I find that hilarious. I've never read an Ayn Rand book in my life, and somehow the woman has constructed our entire economic system, which is incredible. A literary person, actually, not a philosopher, not an economist, a fucking writer, actually constructed our entire economy. I swear, I believe this. I don't know that it's true. It's just my opinion.
I don't know why a writer couldn't do it. You have to remember, a lot of our space program is built on the works of fiction writers.
Science fiction, yep.
Jules Verne got it all. Jules Verne also got our submarine systems going.
I actually, you know what? Well, Snork, I have to admit something. I hate boats, and I've never read Moby Dick. But I do. I mean, George Orwell, Animal Farm, and clearly 1984 are pretty much what we're living right now. Allen Ginsberg, I rewrote his America poem, America Revisited, for today. I actually sent it to Ariel. She loved it. That was really nice for her to say that. And but I mean, they get it. Some writers get it. But if you're talking about economic policy, I don't want a writer writing it. And it actually, she's not even a philosopher and a writer. I mean, she's a literary philosophy person. And there's a nuance of a difference.
The best economic author that I've known was a person that was stuck on an island out in the middle of the Pacific for 2 years because of his wife had a job there, and he started studying an economic system that was not properly recorded throughout the rest of the world. And we we have a lot of people proposing now resource-based systems that could be looking at this and saying, okay, why did that go wrong? Because it was a resource-based economy. And if they want to do a resource economy, then say, okay, how do you get around the problems that these people experienced, problems that it's still giving them today? You know, how can we blend that into a modern society that have the benefits of both the resource and the property economy? Because basically we have a property economy now.
What's funny is with all this Russia hysteria going on, that Ayn Rand is actually Russian. She was born Russian. Just thought you'd know.
It is a small irony, right? It's like this twist of small irony.
Yep.
There are a lot of conservative
or
Ayn Rand
hypocrisy, or just I don't know if that's irony. Alanis Morissette came out with that ironic song in the 90s, and I was a literary major, and I have no idea what irony is. But there's another aspect to it, and that's I think that's what's important. It's just you don't want to look at. It's just a failure to look at the facts, like all of the facts.
So I think where I have a problem with things like, I shouldn't lump them together. they're two examples of things that I've chosen to not really look at and decide, I don't know, 9/11 and Pizzagate. Because I guess I just can't quite make that jump of why in the hell our government would purposefully kill thousands of our own citizens. Now, granted, are they going to go do that elsewhere? Yes, but the whole 9/11 thing, like I said, I didn't pay attention to it at the time. I wasn't very political, and it's just something I haven't dug into, and I kind of just set it over on, the side of conspiracy theory, honestly, which I guess is what a lot of people do with other things, like Seth Rich, which I think has, definitely has some serious weight to it and reasons behind it. I just don't understand the 9/11 conspiracy. Like, what, if anybody could explain that, what's the premise of why? I mean, other than to promote more war for us to return and attack. I mean, is that what everyone thinks?
Probably because in late 1961, that plan was actually presented to our U.S. DoD.
And you have to sacrifice American people, otherwise American people are going to be riled up about it.
Behind it, right? Exactly. It was. Yeah.
Well, I remember, and again, I was younger and I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention, but I remember, and I was no Bush fan, but I remember thinking, yeah, go get those fuckers, because that's what your instant reaction is if you're not and you don't know what's going on. Just like a lot of people are now, I guess, about Russia. They genuinely believe that Russia hacked our elections. Actually, last night I was reading and I started just counting the number of articles, just horrible, horrible, bad journalism, where instead of saying alleged Russian hacking, they were telling a story, but it was like to investigate the Russian hacking. Whoa, wait a second. That's just bad journalism. Like you're telling the reader, you're leading the reader to believe that that's already an established fact, and then the thing you're talking about is built upon that. And they completely leave out the word alleged, which kind of matters. But I mean, it was article after article after article. I mean, everywhere, and it's all like, never did they ever use alleged. It was like they were saying it as if it were fact.
Can I get into a small discussion about language today, which really bothers me? Mm-hmm. I'm not like the Noam Chomsky linguist, but.
Can I do one quick snippet of what Kelly wanted information on? That way I could just log out. So Kelly posted a video of Anonymous, and she was wondering a little bit about it. Okay, so basically Anonymous or even Russia are thinking that there's going to be another financial crisis in the U.S. that's going to happen this October. So basically what Master Chain is, and what they're talking about gas, is Ethereum, the another cryptocurrency that was actually established by the Central Bank of Russia with Putin behind it. They want to move forward and just move into the digital era of cryptocurrency for their entire country. And the idea of, and so what gas is just ether, or ether, whatever, however you pronounce it, is just the currency of Ethereum, which is so it's kind of like how Bitcoin, some people call them Satoshis, and I think the latest one, like Elbury, everyone's talking about jumping onto Elbury as far as video, like YouTube stuff, posting videos, and their term for it is just called credits. So the idea is basically just kind of how whenever a crash occurs with normal fiat in a currency, for example, I think Greece, when they were having issues, that's when Bitcoin kind of went up initially the first time, a couple $100, and they're basing it that, okay, they're just moving a lot of their money out, that way their money's not worthless. Their currency in Greece wasn't worthless. So then they once their currency gets established again, they can move their money back. Otherwise, all your assets and everything just become nothing, right? And so people who have money don't want to just lose everything. So the idea is, when that happens to the U.S., people are going to want to move their money, and it's going to be in cryptocurrency. And I think Russia is planning on making it just Ethereum that you bounce the money in, and not any other cryptocurrency, which seems very difficult to think. Why would people want to just jump on Ethereum and not Bitcoin or Litecoin or any other alt currency? Now, what's pretty interesting is a couple days ago, maybe a week, BTC-E, it was one of the biggest and main cryptocurrencies in the world, based in somewhere in Russia, I believe, and it got taken down. How it got taken down or whatever, no one really knows. So the
topic today is
no one can. People aren't really trusting in exchanges anymore. It's exchanging fiat into any type of cryptocurrency, or cryptocurrency to another type of cryptocurrency. And so, if the only thing that's left, and if Russia finds a way to shut down exchanges and just utilize something like Ethereum, and just so you guys know, there are banks around the world that are trying to figure out a cryptocurrency to create and use, so everyone uses it, just kind of like how everyone uses the banking system. And anyways, Russia has their version of it, at least their central bank. The premise is basically have another financial meltdown, move all the money into Ethereum, which of course Russia is the creator and overseer of that cryptocurrency. How that will actually go, I don't know.
Ebon, I'm not really sure about that, because I'm not an economist, and I actually I don't know, I probably didn't listen to all of it, because I really think, like, it's just a gut feeling, because I don't know. And if I don't have an actual, like, opinion about something, it's not like I'm not going to listen to somebody who can tell me, but I'm not going to listen to people who won't. And that's basically what the stock market is every day, and what their pricing is, and what is. And I mean, they're just, they've changed. They just change how they value it. I shouldn't say that, but I did actually work on the government trying to get back money from banks on the mortgage, the residential mortgage securities. So I do know a little bit about that. Not that much, because I'd be rich if I knew that much all the time, but I don't.
So do you?
But that's not really the point. But what I do think that is happening with the market, despite the fact that I know nothing about Wall Street except where it is, but they don't know what it is. I can talk to anybody at a bridge club, for example, and they're all traders and they all do this stuff, and they're just like, well, I only do this, I only do futures, and I only do this, and I only do this, but it's always at this time and very specified, and it has no idea what the big picture is. And you know what I get accused of all the time? Just like, wow, you're missing the trees through the forest. It's like, you're not looking at the forest. Like, you don't actually look at the forest. And it's like, I get accused of that. I've gotten accused of that at legal jobs. Like, it drives me crazy. Stork is moving his head. I think he agrees with me, but but what I think is happening actually in the economy, these jobs are like the money. People are coming in now. You're always, whether it's NAFTA or it's not NAFTA, you're getting agencies now to employ people. And I think Independent was the one who said they're even trying to do that to the Postal Service. They're doing it to everyone, and they're taking from everyone. They're putting this stuff in prisons, and they're paying you less. And they're not paying you more. They're treating you terribly, and it has to stop. It absolutely just has to stop. It's disgusting. But what Wall Street, I don't know what they're doing, but what they used to do is they've changed the way that they measure stuff, and you can always change the way that you measure stuff. You can change the way you measure someone's credit. You can change the way you measure unemployment, and they change the way they measure stuff, and statistics suck, and that's just how people do things. And that's always been a very big problem for me for, like, I don't know, since I was, a little kid.
So,
and I hate it. And nobody listens to me, except you guys sometimes. Not Kevin, but everybody else.
Let's not make it personal. All right. So, Wall Street, in my opinion, the whole stock market, basically in capitalistic system, eventually you accumulate too much. And where do you put that money? For fiat currency, you put it in bank, and that's where it goes. If the bank goes down, you lose your money. The Federal Reserve, on the other hand, can credit you that unless you, in case something happens, insure that up to a certain amount. But then you also need to pay into it if you want to secure more of it. You can have it in your own personal home in a safe or different places and keep it secure. But of course, if the country has a downturn, that money could be worthless. But then you're in more trouble anyways, because if a country's money is worthless, the whole country's kind of you're gonna have issues anyways. The next thing is, okay, so you don't want to store your money anywhere. Where do you put it then? So the stock market is where you just move your money into the system, and the system is tied into corporations, bonds, the government, outside international, I guess, fiat companies and things like that. The thing is, and that's why you kind of want to diversify. Some people just like buying gold or silver, and that way they have something that they can eventually trade rather than just having cash underneath their mattress or in a safe or something like that. So diversity is, if one thing goes down, you're not hurt. You've got money, you got assets elsewhere that you can move around. You can get out of the country with all your material, and you can start over again. Now, with the stock market, is they want eventual. A lot of the majority of the people who are very wealthy play around with other people's money in the stock market. They don't play around with their own money, and so they don't care if the stock market goes down. That's actually better for them because they're not gonna lose money. It's just like hedge funds. Even if the market is horrible, they still make money because they're paying them as a service to play with your own money or whatever. Anyways, so when the market goes down, you have all these assets in reserve that you know that the market's going to go back up. Everything's dirt cheap. So the next recession, everyone's waiting for it because all your assets are distributed, and then once one type of market goes down, they go, okay, let's take a little bit of each of my reserves because those prices are going to go up. Sell them, buy into the stock market, and the stock market's going to eventually go up, and then you can sell it off, redistribute your assets again. So it's all about redistributing everything that your wealth, and then selling some of it off into something that just kind of went down, and that's going to restart and get bigger again, and then you sell off and redistribute. So that's just it's just reallocation of money. Anyways, sorry, I'm talking too much, everyone. I'll talk
No, it's
later.
good. That's good stuff. That's fine.
See, the biggest problem with, well, one of the biggest problems with capitalism is that it is the economic system that concentrates wealth at the top quicker and more so than any other economic system, because of the way that it essentially allows the wealthy to take advantage of the system. With other economic systems, okay, like socialism, for instance, you have more people in control of it, and that makes it much harder for those at the top to take advantage of the system itself. With capitalism, you don't have that. The wealthy people can do whatever the hell they want. That's why our politicians are now even for sale, because that's how corrupt this system has become. And it's a vicious cycle, because once it gets to the point where the people can no longer stand it anymore, what do? They overthrow it. And by either political means or by a revolution, these jackasses are going to get thrown out. It's just a matter of time.
So, hey, Stevie hasn't said much yet. I know you mentioned it last night, but I just sort of caught on today that Trump was in West Virginia. I know you did a live stream, but he was in West Virginia last night. Were you actually there?
No, I didn't get to make it up there.
Oh, okay. So it was somewhere north of you?
Yeah, it was about an hour drive away, up in Huntington. Yeah.
No, not close enough that you have to take a shower.
Anyway, so that was kind of again, I don't really know what to think of Anonymous. It's it's kind of cool and exciting, but I don't know. I mean, it's always interesting to hear what they have to say, but I think it was not in that video, but another one that was just either the day before or something like that. They were talking about Trump and how basically there's a coup going on right now to try to get him out. And they even said something about a call to arms of people that would come to, like, if they try to remove him from office, like his supporters, like what they would do. It's like, wow, okay. Anyway.
Okay, so
here.
Sorry, you were still going. Go ahead.
Jumping around a bit.
All right. So what I was thinking in regards to Anonymous is, I look at Anonymous as everything they've published, and do we know it's been proven to be fact? Some of the information that they throw out there is so deep where we don't really know if it fucking happened or if it didn't happen. Because things happen. I mean, on the surface, we can see everything. We can see, because we're shown all this information by the mainstream media, so we connect some things. But in regards to Anonymous, and I've seen a few of their videos. I'm not like a fan. I kind of subscribe and I barely see it. But the point is they're so deep in a lot of that information. I don't really know if I'm able to verify it, the source, because it's so. Does that make sense, Bram? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like hard to decipher.
Right. What you're saying is that a lot of they put out so much information. They put out such a lot of it goes so deep. It's really hard to verify a lot of it. That's true. That's a good point. The thing is, what I like about Anonymous though is that they do put out a lot of information, but at the same time, they make it kind of our responsibility to look at it and make up our own mind. They don't necessarily try to say, okay, this is what this is, and this is what we should do about it. They don't get into that very often. What they basically do is they drop it and they go kind of like WikiLeaks in a way. They drop it and they go, here it is.
Go look.
Yeah.
So one of the things they just said in that, not that one I shared, but another one that was the day before, was something about that Donald Trump didn't want to sign the Russia sanctions, but the deep state taken over kind of thing, and that he was going to go into this period of seclusion now. And I thought, well, that's kind of odd. He was just in West Virginia at a very public event. That seems sort of weird.
And now he's going on like a 2-week vacation.
But yeah, and so, but now there's like, I just checked. I do follow him on Twitter just because I want to see what he says. But yeah, there haven't been any tweets. But I mean, that could be purely coincidental. I have no idea. I don't know what to think, but it was interesting.
It could be, but at the same token, it could also simply be good guesswork because, I mean, you look at the situation between Trump and Russia, and I could make that kind of a guess that he was, kind of against having to sign it. Now that he has, he's going to kind of skulk off like a kid who got his hand caught in the cookie jar, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think he really wanted to, but he was ridiculed for getting along with Putin.
Yeah, I see Trump as basically being very much like a spoiled kid because that's honestly that's the way he acts. He acts like a spoiled brat. I mean, you listen to things the guy says, you watch his mannerisms. That's the way he comes off to me. So I can kind of understand making that kind of a statement about him, about things that he's going to do, and kind of coming to that conclusion because it's just the type of guy he is. So I can see that. I don't think it's much of a leap.
Well, there's a couple things. One is his veto would be overridden because it was like 98-2 or something, and so it was going to go. Nothing he could do.
No,
he did a signing statement of some sort. But the thing is, it's like I've said before. I mean, Trump could totally be involved in shady business dealings in Russia, and the rest of it is just fluff around the edges. All this stuff of collusion about, so somebody, said they had something about Hillary Clinton, I mean, there's a zillion people that Podesta email saying they've got something about somebody. So, I mean, I don't see how that's, how that's going to be something that's going to be hugely, it's going to be hard to prove a case of it. Now, as far as like some of his sidekicks and stuff, that's the thing, man. Trump brought in all these shady cats with him, and in that much, you got to be kind of careful who you decide you're gonna hang out with there, because that could be big trouble, and that's part of what's blowing up in his face. But like his business dealings and stuff, Russia, you know, he's got some kind of funkadelic business dealings with Russians, but you know, they're all probably technically legal.
Right.
It's just politically unfeasible. You know, it's going to be, and part of it is the biggest part of it is going to be because he tried to cover it up, and that's going to be the hardest part of it. Is that he's actively tried to cover things up and tried to obfuscate and tried to lie, and, you know. And the thing is, it's just what he's gotten away with in business isn't going to fly, I don't think, with like people in DC and people on, you know, on the sort of DC district circuit, and that, you know, you just aren't going to. That kind of flaunting of power is, I don't even think the Supreme Court, I don't think will back him. And that's the, you know, the other part of it. Even as conservative as I think they bend, and as much as they try to bend their rulings to fit what they want, I actually think that they'll get a couple sit outs on that one. You know, they'll get a couple that won't back a sort of Trump decision on those kind of things. And, you know, it could be a constitutional crisis kind of thing, or it could just be everybody except for Trump agrees to it, and then it isn't a constitutional crisis. You know, it's just simply whether there's going to be an impeachment or whatever. So that's, and, you know, this happened in, you know, we're judging this all by standards of which it's like we dumb down all the standards. Because it's Trump. You can't dumb down the standards that much. You know, Nixon got put away for doing shit that was pretty shady and you know, was definitely against the law, you know, at the time.
So illegal. By shady, you mean actually like federally illegal.
Oh, you know, like usurping the whole power. You know,
I wasn't born during Nixon times. I'm a Jimmy Carter girl. Okay,
power.
so like I just want to know the truth.
But I mean, you know, definitely an abuse of power to the point of, you know, they just went to his office and told him, "You're not going to win this one," and that's got to happen with Trump. You know, they're going to just gawk at his office and say, "You're not going to win," and that's the way it is, you know. And he'll make a deal from there. But that's, you know.
I was honestly just asking because, you know, I was born during Jimmy Carter administration, so anything I know about Nixon is basically I've read in a book or I've heard it somewhere. So I was actually asking if anybody was born during the Nixon administration and has actual more knowledge on Nixon. I'm happy to listen to that. I think you were definitely sort of right in what you were saying, Broken. Carpenter, I don't think Trump's not any more guilty about treason or anything else. I don't think my legal opinion is that I don't think he's guilty of anything more than any sort of other run-of-the-mill business fraud that anybody else is guilty of. Or even if it is some sort of political federal crime under some, you know, statute, it's probably only punishable by money in a small financial, you know, thing. It's not treason. We're not.
Oh, no.
When they say colluding,
I wasn't.
They need to tell the American people this is not treason. And we're not at war with Russia. We're not doing anything with Russia. None of this. This is not treason. This is run-of-the-mill business shit that never gets prosecuted on
I wasn't
anybody.
implying in any way that this was treason. I was thinking more that it was shady shit that he then went on to use government resources to try to cover up, and therein lies the rub. Is when you start figuring out how you use a government resource in the course of a cover up, then suddenly you're definitely treading different waters, and you know, especially if the people around you aren't particularly fond of you, like Trump. You know, you got to have a lot of friends to pull that off. And Nixon at least could crack heads a little bit. You know, he knew the system a little bit. Trump doesn't know the system the way he did, so I don't see that.
That's very. Well, it's a little funny because I'm not sure if you've ever read Dave Barry, a humorous columnist from Miami or something from Florida. He wrote a book called like The History of the United States of America, and there were like a couple of points he just like beat with a dead horse, and one was the Holly Smoot tariff, which I still don't know what the fuck that is, and the other one was Richard Nixon basically coming back from his like political death at every level, which is also hilarious because you think he's dead, but then there he is again, and like, let's not have this happen again. Like, let's just not have this happen anymore. It's like funny once when you weren't alive, but then it's not funny anymore.
I feel like maybe Stevie was trying to talk, but I'm not sure where she went. Anyway, just wanted to say, Stevie, come on and speak. Okay, or not. Anyway, I don't know. Thought Stevie was trying to say something. I was kind of trying to pull her back in, but yeah.
No, I don't see her.
All right, she was still on, so okay. That's okay. She said something about her other chat, but I'm not sure what she's referring to.
I don't know either.
Oh well, that's okay. So yeah, anyway, I wanted to sort of get back to the money thing, whether, I mean, I don't know how serious to take that, what Anonymous had to say, but I always had to have that feeling about, yes, everything's insured. Oh, please, James, go ahead. Go.
No, I'm just looking at my hand. No. Hey, so I think ever since Trump was at the inauguration and didn't get shot, they've been trying to have a coup to fucking get this guy. And I would, yeah, I mean, since day one, they've been trying to get this guy out of here. But the thing is there's nothing illegal at the federal level that this man has done yet. He's and honestly, I don't really think he's going to do what from my perspective, I think he's starting to conform to do what I call it the TPO or two-party oligarchy always wants them to do. Like I said, they're figureheads. I'd say it's like an 80-20, 80% of the time you better follow what we're doing, you know what I'm saying? And then they get to do like 20% of what they want to freaking do. But with this guy, I think they're starting to bring it down to like maybe 5% because he's such a buffoon. But, so they're just constantly after this guy. They've been after him, just as the Republicans went after Obama. Just it's just not doing what they want and what they want to do. But this time, it really seems, from my perspective, it really seems that they're more in the Republicans. I know I call them Republicans. I mean, those people are just blatantly assholes. But the Democrats, it seems like they're moving so in line, like they're almost like united these days in a lot of things they do. And we've brought up all the examples, but I think it's just like somebody brought up the other day or a few times. It's just one party posing as two at this point.
Yeah.
And anytime I hear anything about Trump, I'm like, so. I'm just like, what are you gonna fucking do?
The real reason they want to get rid of him is not because he's got these Russian ties or any of this bullshit. It's because of his buffoonery.
Yeah.
Is exposing how corrupt and how broken the system really is.
Yeah, he's off the cuff.
Because the way he's going about things is showing just how screwed up this system really is. And that's why they preferred somebody like Obama, who could at least put a smiling face on it and could kind of gloss it over. Trump doesn't have that capability. The guy just looks like a moron.
Well, like one of the people at our draft Bernie group, older lady, very politically active all her life, said, "This Trump, you can at least count on him accidentally telling the truth sometimes, you know."
Exactly. That's my exact point. Yep.
Oh, Stevie's back. Okay. Hi, Stevie. What were you trying to say, or were you?
I don't see I was trying to say anything. I'm good.
Okay.
Well, I think the thing about Trump is the system likes some consistency. It runs on some consistency, and Trump is inconsistent, and the system doesn't like inconsistent. And I mean, even if it's buffoonery, sometimes shows something good. His buffoonery oftentimes is not for our good. I mean, it's just buffoonery on an international level is buffoonery that, we as the country that is like the number one threat in the world can hardly give up any goodwill in the world. You know what I mean? I mean, at any time, we can be declared a rogue nation, and so it's that simple, to some extent.
Yeah, totally agree.
So I think that the problem is that he's not consistent. He doesn't. First off, he has, like I've said before, I mean, there is something to be said for some governing experience. I mean, everybody that's pretty much held the office has held some sort of governing or leadership position that was of a large enough size. I mean, Eisenhower, I grant you, was a general, but Eisenhower also controlled like the Allied forces. Yes. And to keep the politics of all those nations going in one direction was probably pretty hard, and especially when you also had to deal with the domestic, I mean, a want for us to be, whatever, doing whatever. But I think that there was a pull off D-Day was a huge thing in itself, but the idea of just he understood large. He understood the vastness of what he was getting himself into. I don't believe Trump did, and I don't believe Trump has. It does not. I mean, here was the thing. Even George W. Bush was at least a fucking governor. Maybe in the least the place where it was the most figurehead position in the country, but it was still a governor, and he still had to act like he knew what he was doing. And if nothing else, the president has to be able to act like he knows what he's doing, because everything in the world runs up and down on his every fucking fart, man. And this idea that the dude can just tweet because he feels like it, and we all understand what his tweet means. Well, we all don't understand what his tweet fucking means. I don't know what the fuck he means half the time. And the thing about it is, even worse, if I can't understand it and I speak the language and understand a little bit of the politics of it, what the hell does somebody in another country think, And what the hell is North Korea thinking? There's he is doing everything logically in my book. I mean, the first thing that all these little countries that want to have any kind of autonomy at all have to do is have a nuclear weapon, because that's the only thing that everybody seems to say, okay, we can't deal with them anymore.
The thing about it is, you got to think of it logically, like you said. If you're a small country like North Korea that has this animosity amongst their sister nations. Well, what do you do to kind of uphold yourself in order to not get picked on? You do? You pick on the biggest, meanest guy on the block so that you look like you've got some cojones and at least have the ability to defend yourself. You know what I'm saying? That's why it looks crazy, but what North Korea is actually doing, if you look at it logically, makes sense.
The mouse that roared, Bram.
Exactly.
The Mouse That Roared it was a movie from my childhood, or when I was young. And
yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's that one. If you've never said, that's Peter Sellers, isn't it?
I believe so.
Well,
if I'm not mistaken, I think you're right.
The whole concept.
Yeah, I think it is Peter Sellers.
The whole concept that Trump is even a businessman is a joke too. I mean, he's only in that position because of what was that? He got a small loan of $1 million. His father.
Yeah. Small loan. Just
yeah, not counting the piles of chips that his father would come in and buy from the
right. And the connections that the Trump name gave him and everything else.
And possibly shady money from Russia, and when you're dealing with the oligarchs in Russia, I'm sure that anybody that's an oligarch in Russia to some extent is shady. That's, I think, and it's not like everybody in our country that's an oligarch isn't shady.
Yeah, I was going to say.
They all are too, but I think that there's been a civilizing of sort of the way they deal with things here that's different from there. I think they're still in sort of their in their pupil stage or whatever, sort of building their cocoon to figure out how in the hell to come out a butterfly on that one. But there's a certain amount of ruthlessness, I think, that the Russian oligarchs are known for. And I think part of that is just because wasn't that, we're not talking about that long ago that everybody was splitting it up. And I think that, that's some of that Breaking Bad. You gotta sometimes you gotta steal to keep what you earned. So
here's when everybody brings up Trump and business and Russia in the same sentence, you have to think of, okay, let's just say the G20. Who was at the G20? Fucking everybody. How many millionaires and billionaires were at the G20?
Yep.
Hundreds. Right? And these are the people that all do business together.
Yes.
If you want to do a story on everybody, let's do a story on everybody.
On everybody.
I'm telling you right now, you're going to find something on every freaking person that had Saudi Arabia connections, Pakistani connections. These people are moving money around. It's zeros and ones and digits and blah, 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 blah. That's a good picture. That picture was actually, what's interesting, okay, that picture was actually in, like a couple years ago. That picture was, or a few years ago, in The Simpsons. And then it actually came to fruition, which is very weird. Did that really happen? But what I'm saying is whatever he's doing, however he's portraying himself. And by the way, this guy, when he was a child, okay, silver spoon, blah, 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 fast forward, millions of dollars. After that, here's son, here are all the connections you need. Here are all the bankers you need. Here are all the real estate agents you need. It wasn't just money. He just didn't. It's just not like he won the lottery and then he got once and was sent on his way. The guy created over 500 businesses. you know, and like 4 or 5 of them went bankrupt, like a few, but still. This, I'm not boosting this per this. There are lots of people like this, the silver spoons. He's that guy that's been in the limelight enough to get enough attention. And then let's rewind and go back here for a second, because in the Podesta files, the 3 guys that were chosen, Cruz, the freaking drugged out doctor, and it was Trump. What was the doctor's name? I keep forgetting.
Carson, Ben. Yeah.
Yeah, Ben Carson. Just God.
Ben who operated on his own brain.
Yeah. Like I think he went home and like did stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I think this is a new procedure. Whatever.
Yeah.
But that, so he was selected to push up in the front so he'd be an easier opponent. Had they known that this guy was going to get on stage and start saying the shit that he did, they, you know, like the way I see it is the story of Frankenstein. Hillary created Trump.
Perfect analogy.
That's a perfect analogy. So what happened is, who did Frankenstein kill? Yeah, Victor Frankenstein, right? Came back around and fucking killed him and just took out Hillary. Yep. So, like I said, anytime I hear things about Trump, you know, whatever. The biggest issue we have is both of them. It's both of them.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not just, you know, because we bounce back and forth. It's okay though. It's okay for us to bring up how ridiculously lame and buffoonish this shithead is. I'm cool with that. It's great that we bring up the buffoonism and the nuttiness of a Nancy Pelosi and a Rendon, you know, fucking voting against single payer for fucking California. You know, I love this stuff because what we're doing is that's what the nation should be talking about. How these people are screwing all of you because of you know, what George Carlin said. It's a big club. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. And it always comes down to they just really don't give a fuck about you.
They don't care.
You know, the majority of them. I'm sure there's a few here and there, but once they see that vault of money, you know, it's over. Thank you for listening.
And the thing is too, and I brought this up the other night, if, like you said, if we're going to air all of it, then let's get everybody out in the open. All 6 major corporations who own our mainstream media, the CEOs of every single one of those have ties to have financial ties to Russia, have financial ties to Saudi Arabia, Syria. I mean,
they have financial ties to a lot of places.
The whole thing is dirty. The whole damn thing is dirty. So if we're going after Trump, we got to go after the rest. It's such a mess. It's all corrupt.
Well, no doubt. I mean, I have total agreement there. I mean, I think that we've been talking about this for a while, you know, that it's a basically the people that make our laws also get paid by the same companies they're making laws about, you know, and it's can't have that.
You mean there's backroom dealing and pay for play, Broken Carpenter?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say there's fair. I wouldn't say there's more play or pay. You know, it's more that way. They'll play
it's
for
like they establish the corrupt system so they can benefit from it, so they can set up the next line of corrupt people to come back in and set up more corruption.
Well, it's like I said. It said about
the cycle of making it worse.
Well, it's like I said about you know, Obama and you know, Clinton and all that. They go into office and they do the things they do, and then when they get out, they come out and do speeches and things like that, and get paid lots of money or take, you know, board seats or whatever. And you know, that's sort of how the big payoff is. You know, the big payoff to being president is afterwards. And so, you know, and it wasn't always that way. I mean, you know, you used to have to do something. I mean, you could, You wouldn't, yeah, but pension. I mean, I still don't understand that, but all these guys got pensions and security and everything for the rest of their lives. I think that they'll be all right.
Yep. Well, it's real easy when you're not struggling to just sort of not worry about other people. Real easy.
Yeah, one of the things about Trump is he's the guy who can start a war with North Korea, and with China. And that's the thing about him that's a little bit different from other people. I mean, in so much as,
well, again,
if we can reach down, I mean, I don't know how far down we got to reach, because I don't think Paul Ryan got his nose dirty on this one, but certainly Mike Pence might have. And either Pence or Ryan, either one of them's a bad idea as the next president. If they would impeach both, even if they would say impeach both Trump and Pence, you would still end up with Paul Ryan as the president. So,
yeah. Well, I mentioned Ed Schultz a couple of times last night, and I'll say it again. He talks about North Korea and basically like what we'd have to do is there's no like little strike. It would have to be wipe them off the map kind of thing. Anyway, it's very interesting, his analysis of it. So.
Well, the only other thing is like I think that Snorker, we were talking about, is just some way to get in there and do something that screws it up enough that it keeps screwing things up. But but that's.
By the way, hey guys, I've just been sitting here a while.
Hi, Greg.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
You're a little faint, but that's okay.
I'm sorry, who is this?
Maybe we can send James Franco and Seth Rogen in, and they can take down the whole operation.
That was a funny movie.
That was a great movie.
That was a great movie, man. I hate that I didn't get to see it.
I'd pay good money to see that.
That's awesome.
I was really, like, I got excited for that movie. I remember when they were hyping it up, and I was like, man, this is going to be awesome. And it
was hilarious.
Pissed when Sony pulled it over North Korea, like, getting all, like, offended about it or whatever. I was so mad. That sucks. Oh, yeah, I've been sitting here for like 30 minutes. I feel like you guys have talked about, like, everything in the world in a half hour.
Yeah, I just looked down and saw the number and realized that.
Yeah, when I started listening, y'all were talking about like the 9/11 thing, and then you like Pizzagate got brought up.
Yeah, we're kind of all over the place.
Yeah, there's no. Yeah, whatever. So good, Greg.
Freeform.
Right now I'm really interested in this. That anonymous video that I guess Kelly showed you guys, I sent that to her like around lunchtime-ish today, and I don't really follow anonymous really closely. Like someone else was saying, I think it might have been Snork or James. I'm kind of like that too. Like I subscribe to them on YouTube. I don't really follow them closely, but this particular video, like occasionally you'll like randomly get like a video recommended to you from YouTube, and that happened with this one for me. So I listened to it, and it like really, really intrigued me. I'm really interested in like these new currencies that are popping up, because like I know Bitcoin, like I don't even know how long it's been around, but it's really exploded in the most incredible way in value. Like I know a guy who bought like he bought maybe like 10 or a dozen or so, like it doesn't even sound like that many, but he bought some Bitcoin back in like August or September, and already like if he sold them right now, he profits like thousands of dollars. Really, really wild. So
it just seems so
kind of interested. Go ahead, Kel.
It just seems so scary and risky, but then I guess so is our stock market.
Right, yeah. Like honestly, I'm kind of interested in looking into whatever this thing is that Russia's doing. I mean, I kind of, for my own selfish reasons, I'd like to look into it just to see if they really have something going here, and it might be a big new thing. Like, if I stand to gain from it, I think I might want to invest in it. I've been looking at, but I don't know. I mean, I would definitely want to be careful about it, obviously. I've been looking at like these apps and stuff. They call it impact investing, that I guess a lot of young people do these days, where you have like whole portfolios based around things that you like actually care about and think are important. Like I have this app called Stash Invest, and once I get my account straight, I'm still trying to like link it to my like direct deposit or whatever. And once I do, I plan to just pretty much pour a bunch of money in there into mostly just like clean water stuff, because I think like we're literally going to be fighting wars over clean water. So I think being invested in that, like, you can't go wrong, really.
Well, like in the movie The Big Short, you know, if anybody paid attention to the end of that, where they talk about the guy that figured it all out, that's what he's investing in water.
And that's like, I kind of had a moment there when I watched that movie, because I mean, obviously that guy was like a super genius, but I mean, anybody who's really, really following the signs and knew what to look for totally could have seen it coming. But I mean, he saw it coming in a way that few others in the world did, and literally shorted the whole American economy and had like Goldman laughing at him and shit. But next thing you know, like, everybody's paying him out the ass, and it's just like such an amazing story. And then that just really, really stuck with me when they said he basically took all his like millions and millions of dollars and put it all in clean water. I'm like, holy shit, like, this guy knows what he's doing. There's something to that.
Yep.
Hey, Snort.
Like,
oh,
concerned about that October thing as well. But yeah, go ahead, man. Sorry.
I wanted to ask Snork. You were talking about the clean water thing and all that, and Snork might have some knowledge on this. The fracking wastewater thing, you know, because we have 300,000 fracking waste wells, and each one uses a little over 1 million gallons of fresh water to start it up. Just kind of curious, what's the progress on purification for that? You know, because that's a lot of fresh water that's just being turned into poison.
The stuff they're pushing down into the ground?
Yeah.
They don't want to purify that. They want that nasty as possible.
No, I mean, but afterwards, because they take it and they try to store it. You know, they use it initially to break open the well and everything, and then they take it all out and they
You're talking production water, the stuff that comes up with the oil.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure at least.
It's difficult,
water,
expensive to clean it. I'm not saying it shouldn't be cleaned, but currently it's considered an externality, and they don't end up paying anything for the cleaning of it.
Okay, I'm just saying it's like about 1 million gallons per well.
Store it till you've got it under somebody else's responsibility, and then let them hold the bag.
So in other words, it's just going to be a big mess until it turns into a big problem.
Yeah, and by then they'll say, "Oh, it's too expensive to address."
Seems like it's almost intentional.
Yeah. I mean, we don't do anything right now to try to put any cost of externalities on our companies. Germany went as far as, if you bought something from a store, that you could take the box back to them, and they had to recycle the parts of it. The box, the packaging material, all of it. They had to take it back. And the Germans, the people that they are, they would walk back with the stuff and take it back to the store. That was a proper way to dispose of it. Now, we don't have anything like that. We basically have, if you do it on your property, and we don't currently have any regulations on the book, open season, make what money you can. We also have a thing of try not to identify your externalities so that you're not liable for them. So if you haven't thought about an issue, no matter how hard you try not to think about it, you're not responsible for it.
Okay, so some people at work today were talking about. Can you guys see? Am I on? Okay, thank you. So the problem with fracking is they do, from what I believe, that, and it's good that Snork's here, is they try to extract whatever they can, and then there's some residue or excessive whatever water or liquid or whatever the stuff they don't need. But a lot of that stuff doesn't come out. It keeps seeping and gets into drinking water, in the lakes, rivers, just that. So everybody knows fracking is just fucking stupid. I mean, the thing about fracking is it's the new oil, and if we didn't learn from oil, then what's the next thing we're gonna do? Start burning people for?
Well, yeah, it's just that I think I mentioned a week or so ago about the town where my daughters go to camp in northern Pennsylvania, and how they were like, I wasn't prepared. There were like no hotel rooms because they were all taken up by people there for fracking. But this owner of this hotel is like just going on about it like this is great, like this town has suffered and they haven't had business, and this is bringing business. Her hotel's full. They're there, they're buying, they're going out to eat, they've got all these guys coming in fracking. So, and I kind of said, well, that sucks. So how do you guys feel about that? Here in this honestly cute little town.
They're only going to have business until they finish drilling the wells. I mean, all they do is drill a well and stick a head on it, and then they're gone.
But then again, you got to see from there.
Somewhere.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't know. It was just interesting because it's kind of hard to look at these people that are probably, suffering economically, and they're just like, oh, thank God there's some kind of business here,
So, in regards to water and the whole fracking and the leftover parts, for me, it's always been water doesn't get wasted. It evaporates and you get fresh, clean drinking water afterwards. It just, when it rains, the way that people get water is through their reservoirs or wherever. So as long as, until there's a solution to clean up all the stuff that's in the sediment that makes the water not good to drink for human consumption, you just have to find a different type of reservoir system. I think that's the only way that we can go until we find a way to get rid of that sediment. Because my wife always tells me I always waste so much water. It's like water gets recycled. Whenever you use water, it's just gonna go back up into and just come back down through rain. But it's just where that water's stored until we use it is where we have to worry about. Anyways, I just wanted to mention stuff about that. Just a different perspective, I guess.
Well, those fracking wastewater wells are under high pressure. They've actually, I believe it was Ohio that had one of them rupture, I believe. I think that's what it was. I know they have quite a few of the fracking wastewater wells. It was either fracture or something leaked when they were doing it. But I'm not 100% sure on the details. I think it was a contamination in somebody's well or something.
Well, they don't always get it perfect. If they did one in California was
also seismic activity, possibly.
Yeah, but it was too close to a different type of chamber underground, and they let the gas out. The one in New Orleans, still growing and eating New Orleans. You never hear any mention of the trace chemicals.
No.
See, they have to be able to monitor what they're doing to understand where they're at and how much more to use. And usually they would use a radio isotope that has a short decay, so they can send it down, and they know within a few days that they're getting stuff back from that batch. And also they can tell where it's intruding into the other areas. So what you view as harmful intrusion, they view as, an opportunistic means for them to tell if they're fracking in the right direction.
That's kind of screwed up. Oh, your water's poisoned. We're going the right way.
Okay. Coal, stupid. All right, look. Okay, here it is. Ready? You guys know this already. Coal, ridiculously stupid. Oil, ridiculously stupid.
Well, it depends on the kind of oil.
Ridiculously stupid. There's the reason why they use this because it costs money, and to make money, there's loans, money moving around. There's something that's in the sky, big, it's bright, and it's free, right? And then they have wind, it's free, and then they have they've got tidal, swell that pull on levers, and anyway,
I think you got three of them for the hydroelectric. You got the your
go ahead, Kevin.
Your lift, and also just the tidal in general. And then you also have wave, the motion back and forth. So there's a couple different ways you can go about getting energy off of water moving around or just sloshing.
Yeah. But again, it's like James said, it's free. And therein lies the problem.
Well, it's free, but it's not free to harness it. It's you've got to build something
that's true. That's true.
There's money. There's an infrastructure that needs to be set up.
Resources to be able to access that energy source.
Right. But once the infrastructure is set up and in place, the energy drawn from that is essentially free once, like I said, the infrastructure is covered. Then you're just
pretty much
on energy.
It's just a steady stream of getting,
right. And how do you profit from that? You don't, and therein lies the problem.
Well, it's the whole thing with capitalism. The less you have, the more it costs. The more you have, the less it costs.
Yes.
And if you have an endless supply, once all the infrastructure is set up and it's just minor maintenance over years and decades, and then you keep adding on more. Plus it also lowers once you have incredibly low power, you're going to have incredibly low manufacturing and incredibly low and any other things that use electrical.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
I think it's also though important to keep in mind when we're talking about once you get the infrastructure, solar is free and water, hydropower is free and wind is free, but you got to keep in mind what Jimmy Dore says though. If as soon as one of those wind turbines falls over in a storm, you're going to have oxygen spilling all over the place, and I don't know, what the hell do you do about that? Solar panels fall, you're gonna have sunshine all over, and you got to clean that up.
Yeah,
so
those spills can
you got to be prepared for that as well.
You're absolutely right. That's a good point.
I have a question, and because I really don't know anything about it, why on my electric bill it says if you want them to use more wind power, pay them so much extra a month?
Mm-hmm.
That is a scam.
Yeah.
Agreed.
In Illinois a few years back, they were coming door to door talking. You want to get away from nuclear, don't you? You want to get away from nuclear. Sign up for this new alternative energy system. We'll supply lines, your electricity over your current line. You don't have to do anything. When you read it, the thing says this allows them to use whatever energy source is
available at the current moment.
And they could use from any combination of, and it included nuclear. So basically, it was just a way for them to sell nuclear and get people to stop protesting.
Yeah, so now it's wind. It's like extra $5 a month or something if, you want them to use wind,
Yeah,
Okay, was that a scam that your gas company literally did?
Electric company.
Or
yeah,
electric
bill. It's on my RG&E bill. It's a little note saying,
I had a scam similar to that up here, except for it wasn't the gas company. It was people masquerading as the gas company from a company downstate. And basically, they kind of do that same thing, except for they send people door to door that are hired and just brought up here. And they say they work for the gas company. And then you call and it's like, nope, they don't work for them. And they just keep coming every year, just like fucking clockwork. They scam maybe 20, 30 people a year up here. And, most of the people have caught on or either knew right away. It's like, this is bullshit. But they keep coming.
Yeah, well, mine is right on my monthly bill. It's printed right on my bill from the gas and electric company.
Have you had any problems with your water company? Because I know just a while back here, they were charging us pretty much almost $200 extra. And it turns out that you can, for the court thing here, apparently the water company was cheating with the meters. They were overestimating every single bill or something like that. So it ended up where we didn't have to pay $200.
Yeah, I don't know. My landlord pays the water bill.
I don't know. When it comes to utilities, they've been screwing around with shit a lot and trying to fuck people.
I have a question for Snork. So in our backyard we have a hammock that my wife made, and in the mornings it's just really sunny, and so I put up some cloth or bed sheets pretty much to tie it up to block the direct sunlight, and it gets windy and it starts pushing just kind of like a sail on a sailboat.
Mm-hmm.
How efficient would it be for people to create their own wind power in that type of aspect using just
150 years ago? That's how everybody pumped the water for their house. Not for all the wells outside the house, but that's how you pump the water for your cattle. That's how you did all that. It's pretty effective.
Anyways, I was thinking we should try coming out with a little mini invention of a wind or sail powered generator or something.
You could find some on the internet.
Oh yeah. Have you ever tried one? Is it pretty efficient?
No, I'm personally, the next one I do will be a horizontal windmill. I'm into diamagnetic levitation, so I want a low friction bearing surface that would be propelled by very small winds to collect surface winds.
Is there any? What are you gonna put for the windmills? What material?
Well, I would probably use recycled polypropylene.
Okay.
I want something that
won't break.
Isn't going to be driving through somebody's wall.
Oh, well, that too, yeah.
I'm getting sleepy. I think I have to stop.
See you, Kelly.
Good to see you
See
all.
you, Kelly.
Hi, Kelly.
Good night.
Good night, Kelly.
So,
on an average day, how much energy do you think that could generate?
It really depends on your house and where you're at, how high you're going to put it. You'll also be able to find those charts online to help you. Just like there's insolation charts to find out how much sun you could use for your house. There's also wind charts to find out what the wind is for your area.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
And there are a lot of cool ways to use wind power. And it's a shame that we ridiculed it in the 60s and killed it in Iowa. And it's now making a comeback in Iowa.
There's a book, the Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. And it's about this kid in Africa. He was on the Daily Show or something. And he built a windmill in his village. And he built it out of just scrap parts he found. He would look around and find something or make something. And it's like all this makeshift put together thing, but it worked.
Yeah,
so
that's pretty.
If you can find the interview, it was a pretty cool interview.
Yeah, I remember watching that.
So it could be done. It's just a matter of, you got to really want it. And this kid really wanted it.
Is there any invention that generates electricity from the tides coming in and out? Have they done anything?
Yeah, multiple. The Canary Islands actually have some really good ones.
Oh, Canary Islands.
Basically, it's a big sort of pier thing that sections off a chunk of water, and it lets the hot water come in and go out. It just got a turbine. And then there's also the kind that use a pressure differential, like when the water goes up, like it has a piece that goes out into the water, goes down, and then as the water goes up and down, the pressure moves back and forth and it turns a turbine. And then there's also, what the hell is the other one? There's quite a few contraptions people have come up with to get energy out of it. For just water moving around, whether it be the waves or the tide.
Yeah, I mean, we should well, James, you should probably create a list. I mean, you're right. We have the sun, that's almost limitless. We've got wind, we've got gravity, we've got plus gravity, hydro, electric.
Well, hydro and gravity are pretty much the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Without the moon.
Just the medium you're using.
Well, actually, well, at least with the tides, it's with the moon.
You could do the same thing with a big boulder and a gearing system if you raised it up. That's basically the effect of the same sort of setup as hydro. You could do it somewhat similar. Of the way you're storing energy. Big boulder lifts up, you let it go down, and move something.
Oh, what was the other one that they don't list? Is the gases of
thermoelectric? They don't mention that on there.
No, from microorganisms.
Geothermal.
No, that was on there.
That was on there.
Low temperature geothermal, and then you also have high temperature, and then you can do it atmospherically too.
Okay, so I have another stupid question. And maybe you guys talked about I was in and out of the room, but about solar, because I really don't know a lot about the whole thing. Why can't you generate all your own energy through solar and not be hooked up to a public utility and that?
How much money you got?
The grid.
You need a charge controller, you need an inverter, batteries, a monitoring equipment, and then you need all the wiring and everything for it, racking for the panels.
The sun doesn't shine 24 hours, so there
you get about a 5-hour peak period.
So
there's a couple different ways though you could do it.
Hold a reserve. You can't have your own giant battery that holds a reserve.
It's not cheap right now. It's not cheap. It can be done.
Using solar, because I've seen somebody up here that literally has a concentrated solar. Basically, they got a pipe they made that's glass on. It's a vacuum tube sort of thing, and it's got the pipe running through, and it seals on both sides. It's like 20 foot long, and it's right along the front of their house, and it's got a reflective plate on it. So 5 hours a day, they're pumping oil through the damn thing and heating it to like 500 degrees. I thought that was pretty badass. I'm not sure if they're putting it into a bank to use it for thermal energy storage, or if they're just using the hot oil to heat another loop going to something else. But I was thinking, that's hot enough to run a Stirling engine, and you can make those. It's not super difficult to make them. It's just you need all the knowledge and time, and you need all the material to do it properly. But they can actually be. That's the thing about those thermal engines, though. It's like the weird thing about their efficiency is the bigger it gets, you start getting limited to how efficient you can make it. But the small ones, you can get them surprisingly efficient, though, and within still a reasonable capacity. You know, I just think that's kind of cool. If somebody could do that, that's kind of, you know, 5 hours a day, and then you have a thermal bank. You don't know, because you gotta, if you turn it into heat and utilize the heat through a more efficient way of converting it to electrical energy, versus just using a solar panel that's at like anywhere from, depending on what kind you get and what brand and, you know, what are they made out of, anywhere from 14 to 23% or 25%. So I don't know. Would you rather have the same amount of energy in heat form and then be able to harness, you know, maybe 40 to 60% of it, versus only harnessing, you know, about 20% of it, roughly, somewhere in there?
I think the best way, if you're going to set up something like that, is to stay connected to the grid, but utilize what you can from your own natural energy sources. So if you need it, your backup is basically the grid and what you pay for. And don't settle for just one thing. Even if you're in, say, New Mexico, don't just go all solar. Have something for wind, have something, some gravity system. Just utilize as much diversity as you can. You know, it's a little bit, it trickles down. That way you don't really have to store too much into whatever battery that you have. Like if it's nighttime, the winds will pick up or something like that. You can generate a little bit of that. And
okay, so utilizing a variety, would it be possible for someone? I'm getting feedback.
Did you want to, James, what did you mean, two piston? What did you want me to explain?
The Stirling engine.
You can make it a bunch of different ways. It's just a pressure differential engine. It's got a medium inside of it that expands and contracts to move pistons. You know, you put heat on one side and you cool it from another. You get a high spot going to a low spot. You know,
but I thought it was just a back and forth thing.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's
like the
one
piston
side
going back and forth.
expanding, and it escapes to the other side where it cools, and then that contracts, and it goes back and forth and back and forth.
Could we hook a few politicians to a mill wheel and, you know?
That's not a bad idea. We've got plenty of those to go around.
Bacteria was one that I thought was pretty cool.
Not a bad idea.
We've got abundance of it, and then it's the gas. So someone's got their YouTube stream on. I think it's you, Kevin.
Or James.
I'm not playing YouTube.
James?
I'm not.
Yeah, I
weird.
checked mine because I heard it when I was talking. It's not mine.
Right?
Just me.
No, that's not me.
Yeah. Maybe is it me? Test. Say something.
Is it even?
No, it's not me.
Nope.
Well, I've been muted. So.
Yeah.
Do you guys know what the laws are? I'm saying this like I know, but I kind of know that if you can actually go completely off the grid. You guys know?
It depends.
What do you mean the laws are?
So, you know?
What laws for what thing in particular? Like country laws, thermodynamic laws?
No, I'm talking about going off the grid of electricity or gas. Completely off.
Many states right now are trying to legalize it. Florida has been the leader in trying to legalize it, where you can't even put on solar panels.
Wait, repeat that part, that last part.
Wait, hold on. I'm gonna reclaim the host, and I'm gonna just start muting people to see if we can isolate.
That's what I tried to do.
Test. No, it's not Bram. Hold on. Let's see. Forsaken. Test. Not Forsaken. James. Test. Hello? Yeah, it's a little bit.
You
test, Kevin, test. Ah, it's Kevin.
Yep.
It's you, Kevin.
I don't have any YouTube on.
You're getting feedback somehow. Your mic might be too close to your speakers.
Yeah.
All right, giving you host back, Graham. All right, sorry. Go ahead.
Some states are, I'm not sure who is coordinating it, but are trying to ban you installing your own solar, installing you from purchasing solar panels. State of Florida was pretty vicious about it. I considered going down there for some friends and just giving them lessons on how to build their own solar panels.
Well, California was starting to have some problems here a couple of years back because Warren Buffett has quite a lot of his money tied up in fossil fuels and was fighting solar here in California. He was trying to prevent, particularly Solar City, and there was one other. He was trying to prevent them from expanding.
Yeah, that's insane. That they would try to make it illegal to have solar on your house.
Yep.
It's like, oh, you got to stay hooked up to the grid, even if you can produce your own power and you know how to, and you can handle your own septic. No, you got to stay hooked up to our utilities.
Yeah, yep. And some are saying that they had to charge you a tax if you went on solar.
Oh God!
Use because you still, even if you weren't using the nuclear power plants, that you were still needed to take on some of the burden of them.
Bullshit.
What's funny is I think in the 90s or 2000s, I heard there was some state where you could supply power into the grid and get a credit. Does that even happen now?
That's kind of a scam too, in a way, because to an extent it is. Some are better than others, but it's like they'll buy it from you for the cheapest possible price, and then they'll sell it to somebody else for a lot higher. So it's not like the bills don't end up getting lower. You got to think this is a company just trying to make money. Your bill's never going to get lower.
Yeah. I mean, but that's better than them actually trying to ban it or charge.
Well, they are using power though.
It's reverse metering is what they do. Is you're
I think it's called net metering or something like that.
Yeah, they figure out whether, and
you're involving those people and they want to charge you for hookup fees and all that crap.
Let Burger Carpenter finish.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It used to be that they had it set up so you had pretty fair market price for your electric. And people were making money off of it. They were making a little bit of money back that basically paid for their solar system or whatever, was the way it was working out for some people. And the electric company didn't like that, and they managed to get something to loosen up the rules about the how much states or how much localities could pay or companies. And that sort of screwed up the system. So there was a fair system of sorts that made sure that everybody made something out of it, because the electric company, it wasn't like they weren't using it. It's electric. It just shows off somewhere else, I guess.
Well, the problem is that they weren't able to control how much you were putting up to the system. They have to spin their systems up. If it's a nuclear power plant, it's not going to go from being off to being on immediately. And their problem is that loads vary between the night and the day quite a bit. So they can't just turn off their reactors during the night. They have to keep them up at some level to be ready to spin back up for the morning. And they use up a lot of fuel and a lot of expenses during the off times at a nuclear power plant. People don't realize that cost, and they say that they're a public entity, and when they said that they would do the nuclear power plants for the cost they did, they were expecting a certain amount of payback. And it's happening now that a lot of the nuclear power plants are not making what they were promised, that they would be paid for bringing their plants online. Everybody getting tired?
I think so. Sorry.
I'm probably shouldn't push it. I probably should.
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Without a stupid
My
question.
mind's drifting in
I'm gonna just
other directions.
too.
You know, and I will hopefully be in touch with you guys soon. Thank you for letting me share. Aloha.
Aloha, brother.
James, night broken.
Good night,
See
brother.
you guys later.
Bye, guys.
Good night. Oh, Smart left too. Okay. I guess it's just you and me, Steve.
I'm still here.
Well, I mean, in terms of the people, I can actually see.
I know he didn't say he was going. It's like they
No.
walked away with him.
Yeah, he just went and left. Oh.
I guess Snork was like, "Well, the door's open. I'm heading out."
Well, he was saying he didn't want to push it. I thought he was going to stay on for a little longer at least, but I guess not. Okay, so anything else?
Nothing right offhand that I have.
Nah, my brain is drifting.
I'm just having fun in the chat.
What's that?
I said I'm just having fun in the chat.
Gotcha.
Been too tied up with everything that's going on here to even keep up with most current events or anything.
Yeah.
So with the landlord, with the inspection, and then they're painting in the hall, and everything from the hall had to come in. Yeah, too much going on.
Oh, that stinks.
I do think that thing from the anonymous video about Russia, like planning on crashing our economy in October or whatever, that's probably going to linger in my mind for a little while. But I don't know. Like, even if it kind of happens, I feel like it's probably not something to worry too much about. Like, when I was talking to Kelly about it, we were both kind of agreeing, like, you know, like most regular people probably wouldn't even notice if, like, the stock market crashed in a big way or whatever. You know, it's like, we know it's half of people in America, right, that couldn't even come up with like $500 in an emergency. Or,
right.
There's like well over half that couldn't come up with 1,000, like, even if they pulled out all the stops and went everywhere. So, I mean, if everything crashed, my money wouldn't suffer. I don't have any. So, but still, I don't know.
They're not taking my mattress.
Yeah. Yeah,
The only people that really worry about an economic crash or anything like, sorry.
No, you're good, man.
I was just saying the only people that really worry about an economic crash or anything are people that are rich. Because, no, my money and all my stocks and all this crap's worthless like it was to begin with. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Just arbitrary bullshit. But I mean, rich people, like, if you're the right kind of connected rich person, you don't even have to be worried about a crash, because ultimately those of us who are in this chat right now are going to bail you out, right?
Well, it's not even, it's the government bailing them out. It is us bailing them out in the way, because it's basically stuff that should have went to us to begin with gets diverted to them. I mean, it's not like they're coming up to your house and robbing you. Literally, well, they might. It might end up in that. It might end up in a situation where they end up taking your house or taking your shit. It's kind of like the Flint thing. It's completely the government's fault for destroying all the pipes and all that shit. And then they want to blame the people for not paying their bills and then put a lien on their house to steal their property and bulldoze it. That kind of circumstance, except for on an even bigger scale.
Yeah. We need another word similar to terrorism for situations like Flint. I mean, fascism's a good one, but like
well, you
lots of
literally
terrorism, but terrorism
intentionally
doesn't
destroy
quite
the
get
area to devalue it, drive people out, and then take it over.
gentrification. Yeah, terrorism is a great word for Standing Rock, though. Go to access. That's pretty much what the word terrorism was invented for, I'd say.
Well, that's still the same deal. It's so you can take it over and use it. It's all the same thing. It's theft. It's theft from the country. It's just, you know.
Yeah, and this eminent domain thing is really strange, too. I don't think I really even properly understand it. I haven't looked into it that much, but I was hearing someone say the other day that that if things get much worse with well, I don't think they were talking about Russia, actually. I think they were talking about, like, if we were to end up in, like, a trade war with China, the government might just do the eminent domain thing and, like, take away tons and tons and tons and tons of property that Chinese businessmen and companies and stuff have been buying up all over the place, all over the world, including in America. So that'd be a really bizarre situation if that happened. That'd be.
Why would that matter? I wouldn't be worried about it. They're the one. I mean, that's people buying up large chunks of housing and all that's what's driving up the prices.
Yeah.
I say go ahead. Fuck it. If it's not going to hurt us any worse.
Yeah, I guess so. You guys were talking earlier about Trump being like the Carpenter and Bryan, I think, were kind of saying two different things that seem like they kind of opposed each other, sort of. But I feel like both things are true at the same time. Like, I think a lot of us predicted that Trump would be basically a guy who would put the ugly face, like the loudmouth, ugly, obnoxious face on a lot of the ugly, awful things that we've already been doing for decades, just on a regular basis as a country and with our leaders. And I think he's totally done that, but at the same time, like, the other end is also true, that we're all like totally embarrassed and ashamed and confused and worried. So I think both things are true at once. Like, it's like a blessing and a curse. But I do think it's cool that people are paying so much more attention now, and like people didn't really know the names of like tons and tons of people in Obama's cabinet. People just didn't, but like we know the names of these bastards in Trump's cabinet, you know? Who's even still up there? Guess you're running whatever's left of the show now, Stevie.
I don't think she was listening. She just caught her name.
What did you say?
Oh, I said, I guess you're like running whatever's left of the show here now.
I'm having trouble understanding you. Sorry.
You
said,
said
are
if
you
you're
running what's
running
left
the
of
show
the
now, or whatever's left of it. Like they left you in charge here.
I'm not in charge, but I hope not.
Is he still here?
Oh, he's in charge right now.
Uh-oh, we're in free fall.
Yeah, I guess so. I love this live chat, though.
Bram had it, I think.
What were people saying about the Bitcoin thing and the Ethereum thing earlier?
I could attempt to to tell you, but like I don't really have a firm grasp on it. You should go to Anonymous channel on YouTube, and they have like a new from the past day. They have a 7 or 8 minute clip, and
I don't even bother watching those.
Oh, you don't like Anonymous?
It's just retarded. It's just somebody saying something. There's nothing. They say a lot of stuff. Is it got dramatic music and flashy images too?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I figured.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's pretty standard Anonymous stuff. Like I don't watch a lot from them. This one was just like out of the blue, like YouTube notification recommended to me, but it was interesting. And they're talking about
what was he trying to say? What was it about this time? You gotta admit, it's like somebody just randomly doing one of those things. Oh, I'm anonymous. Okay.
Right, and that's the thing is everybody's anonymous. They say like if you've ever had any kind of sympathy for Anonymous at all, then like you are anonymous. So it's one of those weird things where there's like no centralized leadership. There's no real structure.
I'll just see what happens and go from there.
I know. So you don't really know who's reliable, who can do anything, who can't.
Right, but in this video, they were basically saying that we're pretty much entering into a trade war with Russia because of these sanctions, and I mean they're saying that like Russia's been preparing for this, and I don't know.
A trade war with what? What are we trading that we're warring with?
Right, that's definitely a question worth asking, because like I don't know what we trade at all with Russia, but what they were saying.
Well, no, it wouldn't be trading with Russia. It would be who are we undercutting the market and basically trading with the people they wanted to trade with, but cutting them off so they trade with us instead. You know, or just flooding the market with cheap shit like China.
No more mail order wives.
I think it's
Russian mail order
not so much like traditional trade, but they're talking about this infrastructure that Russia has been, I guess, investing a lot into for this digital currency. I forget what they were calling it. You just said it a minute ago, though.
Ethereum, I believe it is.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. Yeah.
Bram, why do you have Greg's name on your screen?
I don't know. I can fix that.
Hi, Greg.
Hello, Greg.
The aliens grabbed Bram, and then when they put him back, they put the wrong name up.
So yeah, Bram probably understands
really a
clone about this video better than I do. You watched that Anonymous video, right? The new one?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, it's a pretty short clip, and it's standard Anonymous stuff, but I think it's intriguing at least.
The whole Bitcoin and Ethereum thing is, I really don't see the point. You know, like I get, blockchain and all this stuff, and it's a store of value, it's a security. And, you know, I really don't see the point. You know, maybe you can make some money off of it, but it's not like you can do like the role of a government with it. I mean, because normally a money system's attached to a government most times.
Yeah, I don't get Bitcoin at all. I don't understand it. I don't know what it's supposedly backed by. I mean,
it's backed by nothing. It's basically a digital fiat currency.
Right.
So you can just make up your own and say, I have a million Bitcoin.
Pretty much.
Right. I definitely don't fully understand it, but I do know a guy who owns a decent chunk of them, and talks about it now and then, and it seems like it's like the currency for anything shady or dark, or like anything on like the deep web, dark web, whatever. It's what everybody trades in, I guess. So I don't really understand it, but apparently there's. Go ahead.
Where do you get it to begin with? And you know, it's like, what was it created out of thin air? Then what value does it have?
Yeah, basically.
It was created out of thin air, just like the money in your pocket. Just how that was created.
Exactly.
Well, not technically created out of thin air. That was made out of, at least it's paper. The Bitcoin thing is literally thin air.
Well,
Yeah, it's
yes and no.
almost even more arbitrary and ridiculous than these stupid pieces of paper that we carry around.
Pretty much. I was kind of thinking there's a compromise to be made between an unlimited fiat currency and commodity-based, like just resource-based currency. And the kind of balance I see there is, okay, base it on a pretty much infinite resource, sunlight. You know, you can base it off of energy, like what that way. Anytime you're expanding your energy infrastructure for renewable, you're basically increasing your money supply. You know, and I guess there's a set limit by the amount of space on the planet, but you know, I don't know. I think that could work somehow.
Okay, so Bram, do you understand this?
A little bit. I don't know a whole lot about it, but the way it works is you're basically using your computer's computational power to do certain kinds of tasks for, say, a larger what's the best way to put it? Okay, think of it this way.
Kind of like the folding at home thing, or
Yeah, essentially, yes. The only difference is you're actually getting paid for it. That's actually a very good analogy.
Okay, so how much computational power are people using that they have? Some people have millions in Bitcoin.
Okay. Sorry. So there's a lot that goes into mining alt currency, and it's based on work and the algorithm it takes to mine it, and all coins are based on blocks. So when you go to a mining pool and you set up your computer to start mining it using whatever hash that it is to solve whatever it takes to get that coin, that block released. That block has a certain amount of coins, and what a pool does is when you work for the pool, if the pool wins, like, it's not necessarily given that what you mine you're actually going to get. So when you join a pool, if that pool gets that block, it distributes the coins from that block to everyone who did work within that pool. So if you were, say you had 10 computers that were mining, and you made up, say, 6% of the pool, you would get about 6% share of a block if that mining pool got that much. So that's kind of how you generate coins. Now, what a lot of cryptocurrency does is eventually the amount that you get from each block, it gets less and less over time. And I'm not sure exactly why they meant to do that. So eventually, after however many decades, the amount of bitcoins that can circulate throughout every transaction will be limited. So there will only be several million, I think, bitcoins in the future, and there won't be any more generated.
And then there won't be any tax system or fiscal policy, so they'll just aggregate to a single area.
Probably.
They just kind of toss around the same.
So this is basically it kind of seems like a way to, I'm going to spread all this out, let it move around, and as it moves around and does its stuff and generates resources, I can funnel it all back.
Yeah, the problem is that alt currencies. So now, instead of just one cryptocurrency, it's multiplied. So the whole idea of it being finite isn't going to work, because you just switch from one currency to another, and there goes that finite supply. The decentralized part is it's really tough to say, because it can be centralized, and what you have are these huge powerhouses, either countries or very rich people or people who have endless supply of, like, electricity to run computers all day long. Is they buy, instead of typical graphics cards that have like FP64 performance.
The thing is, it's like I don't know. I just don't see the point of Bitcoin. I mean, it's basically the dysfunctional U.S. currency with our minus our screwed up monetary policy and minus fiscal policy to actually get something done.
Let me finish so I could explain.
To allocate resource wise. It's just
all right. So continuing on when people mine it, the decentralization part isn't always accurate because you buy these ASICs. Basically, there's CPU chips that only perform that specific type of algorithm to solve it. So it's very efficient, very fast, and that's what a lot of people use to mine Bitcoin and Litecoin. Now, to get around it, there's something called Vercoin, VERTCOINE, way back, where they changed the hashing algorithm every couple of times. Like whenever there's enough for them to create an ASIC machine, they change the algorithm so that ASIC becomes worthless. And so that's one way to kind of get around the centralization part of the aspect of decentralization. Anyways, the whole aspect, the thing that keeps everything together is the ledger system. So every transaction is recorded, although the address that you use is not really, can be somewhat anonymous. When you're tied up and say you buy something on Amazon using Bitcoin, that address is tied to you, your account, your name, your address, whatever, so they know it's you. Except when it goes out into other addresses, because you can always change your address. So every transaction you can always change an address, so you never use the same address twice. So that can help anonymize who you are. But the whole purpose of the ledger system is saying that someone made some transaction and it costs this much cryptocurrency. It's just, I mean, whether it works or not, it's just a system of trade. Like something is.
And then I see things about where they've taken down this whole system of cryptocurrency, and then everything's worthless and everybody's lost everything, right?
No, those are just exchanges. So exchanges are just an easy way. It's just like going to the market. It's just an easy way to do your shopping. It's an easy way to trade your cryptocurrencies, or for different fiat, for different other coins.
In other words, you sell your coins for somebody looking to buy it with a certain currency you want.
Yeah.
But if you try to use it in the real world, then you're leaving tracks, and that kind of makes it point.
Because when you try to use it in the real world, you just change your address. You can change your address at any time. When you send that out to give out, say, certain cryptocurrency to someone else, you use a specific address. You can generate a new address. You can use the same one if you want, but you can.
Wouldn't the whole thing kind of fall apart if nobody decided to buy any?
Well, if no one ever used it, or no one ever was keeping the blockchain going.
There's no point to it unless you constantly have people buying into it.
Not necessarily buying, trading. You're
same difference. You're buying, you're trading, you're trading liability for liability.
Yeah, I mean,
except for one liability has a government and the other liability has a blockchain, or
it's just the ledger system is what the blockchain is. It's generated by computers.
Right.
So it's I mean, like any currency, there's drawbacks. I think the entire premise for
I wouldn't even call it a currency, really.
But the only reason for it was to not let it be controlled by any type of banking system or country, and that was the original intent of
I get that part
of cryptocurrency. Anyways, that's kind of the skinny.
But still, even if you bought something, say at an established site like Amazon, and you say, well, you can change your address, but wouldn't they still have a record that this person at this physical address bought stuff using Bitcoin?
Yeah, and they'll use your Bitcoin transfer address. And that's how they'll tie it together. And I mean that's where it ends. I mean if you got your coins using a different address to get it, like when you receive Bitcoins, you can send out an address where they send it to you. Or
yes, I mean you can't have, but say you have one physical address and you're having goods sent there that you paid for with Bitcoin, they're still going to have a record that
there's going to be that one trend.
You're having it mailed.
Yeah.
So I'm talking not your address on your computer, but your actual physical address. Your record, they'll still say you paid in Bitcoin.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's no longer tied to your computer's address. It's tied to your physical address or your name or whatever.
Yeah, it's a wallet address, not necessarily a computer address. So basically, a wallet for cryptocurrency is your own wallet. You can have it password protected, and you should. But if you forget it, you're screwed. There's no tech support where you can get your password back. So you want to make sure that you always remember your password, or your coins are all forfeit.
But I mean, if they wanted to track down everybody who paid in Bitcoin, they could still do it, because if you ordered physical goods sent to a physical mailing address,
yes,
they know you paid in Bitcoin.
Yes, they could. But what can be difficult for them is knowing the difference of when you obtained that Bitcoin, of what it was worth, to when you spent that Bitcoin, and how much you should be getting taxed for that difference. So it gets hard to regulate that way. Anyways, sorry. That's it's a lot of stuff to take in, and I mean I've been out of it for probably 4 years, so I'm still behind on a lot of stuff. I get some stuff here and there, but
you know what the pitch for Bitcoin, like the kind of adoption pitch that you hear for Bitcoin, you know what it really reminds me of? It reminds me of the homeopathy thing, where it's like you take something and you dilute it down to the point to where it has no meaning anymore.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
I don't know. I just like, what's the original purpose for having a currency to begin with? All right. I mean, what's the whole purpose for forming it? I mean, because you don't have a market system until you have a currency. But then you're trying to put a currency into an already pre-existing market system.
All right, so let's break it down to the original barter system. So, say Bryan.
It's all about resources, though. Yeah. All the barter system's resources. Yes. The Bitcoin and liability. I'm trying to explain it. Not even resources, really.
I'm trying to explain it, Kevin. All right, so Bryan has chocolates, and I have soap, and Stevie has cotton, and I'm like, all right, Bram, I want some of your chocolates. I'll give you 1 bar of soap for a bag of chocolates. Bram's like, no, I don't need soap, but you know what I do want? I want some cotton. And so I go to Stevie. Hey, it's not really efficient, because I have to go with Stevie and say, hey Stevie, I want some chocolate. I don't really want cotton, but in order for me to get chocolate, I need to get cotton from you. All I've got is bars of soap. Do you want to buy a bar of soap? And she goes, no. Well, I'm screwed. So I have to go find something that Stevie wants. So I keep going around and waste a lot of time. So that's where currency comes in. So currency comes in is like, okay, we all kind of come together and say, hey, this money is worth this much. Our items compared to that is worth, our items compared to this currency is worth this much. And it's built on the market system, is how much is in demand, how much isn't, how much is circulated of that item out where people are, need it or just don't need it anymore. And so now what determines that market price these days? Is it it's the capitalistic system, so it's priced on demand and whatever.
Not really. It's priced on who has it.
Yeah. So then we get to the
supply side pricing.
Then we get to the point of where government comes in, and banks and a whole bunch of other factors that go, you know what? We don't think that it should be worth this. It's worth this. So if you're gonna, and there's limitations. You can't price it above this. It can't be under this, and you get taxed for it for what you sell or what you get or where So it's very regulated system of currency. But now and the exchanges between that currency to somewhere else. Now here comes Bitcoin. Bitcoin isn't regulated by any means. It's regulated by people who have it and give it away. And the only thing that dictates it is, hey, I'll give you this much Bitcoin if you give me a box of pizza. Like you heard that story of someone initially in the early stages of Bitcoin, they gave away 10,000 Bitcoin for a box of pizza because they thought it was cool to be able to buy something with just digital currency. Now Bitcoin's worth around almost $2,900. So, that 10,000 Bitcoin is worth a lot, and it's mostly dictated by trading, and the trading isn't taxed, there really isn't a downside to trading cryptocurrency because it's unregulated. The only downside is that the exchanges are iffy. You can't really trust them. You don't want to put all your money in an exchange. If you ever do, what you want to do is have money, go to exchange, buy something, transfer it over to your wallet. It doesn't take that much time, and store it there. And then you also want a backup of your wallet in some type of cold storage, like a USB key that's stored in a safe or something. So that's kind of where Bitcoin came about, and what's the difference between that and currency to a barter system. And then whatever your thoughts on the entire system of currency, that's
the whole point of it's to move resources around. Unless you can move resources around, none of the currency matters.
Yeah, but sometimes you can't just get certain things by just the barter system can be a tough thing. I think it can be. I don't know. It's hard to.
I understand the problems of the barter system.
Yeah. So what would be your solution to an alternative form of trading without currency or something like that?
Alternative form of trading without currency?
Yeah.
It depends on how people are willing to go with it. It's like if you want to continue the system we have now, then we got to repair the government and get the fiscal policy going right and fix the monetary policy. If you want to try to go with the Bitcoin thing, well, you still have to fix the government because it's completely dependent on all the trades for its value. You know what I mean, right? Because if they weren't trading for Bitcoin, that wouldn't have value. Like you couldn't. Well, unless because there's a lot more stuff priced in dollars than there is priced in Bitcoin. It's a lot more like I can take $1 and go to the store and get something. If I take a Bitcoin, it's going to be a little more difficult than that, And even with shipping and all that, you run into the thing where you need money to pay for shipping because if it's in the United States and unless you can find a Bitcoin only payment people that hey, ship me this, I'll pay you Bitcoin, or it's just there's so many problems. Like I understand, it's like you can exploit it and make money off of it. That's pretty simple, but you can also do that with the United States currency. But there's also a bunch of people already doing it.
You can always find someone who will pay for your Bitcoin, and a lot of it
for now.
Yeah, for now. If there was
you can always find somebody that'll pay for U.S. dollars too. For now,
say there's only one currency, one global currency, Bitcoin would be worthless. So, the entire cryptocurrency, the basic necessity for it is, like you said, to transfer resources. So basically. When someone accumulates wealth, it has to be distributed somewhere. That wealth is based on ownership of something. and whether it's a house, whether it's some type of like a plane, whether it's paintings, whether it's whatever. That's all kept somewhere. But if the money is worthless, if you're not, no one's gonna buy it. So you have to go somewhere where where it's valued, and the value of what you're trading in for has equal value. Otherwise, you're just losing, I guess, capital.
I just see, like, I don't know. I just see problems. I see problems with both our money and that.
Yeah.
You know what's weird though? Bitcoin is 10 years old.
Yeah. It's been around a long time. And people, I'd say about 8 years ago, 8 to 7 years ago, people were saying, "Oh yeah, it's just gonna die off. It's stupid. It'll never work." And look at now, it's pretty popular. And so it's.
You'll still have like flash crashes, but it'll be around for a while.
Yeah.
I think the biggest crash will come when it finally ticks off to the last Bitcoin kicked out, and then it will start to implode slowly.
Well,
that's already happened, dude. Bitcoin is.
No, I mean the last Bitcoin.
But if you follow the history of Bitcoin, it has imploded so many times.
No, I'm not talking about for the buying and selling kind of up and down sort of thing. I'm talking about when it finally stops to the point to where it hits 21 million, and you know it just
but it's not just Bitcoin.
It stops moving.
You have the crypto spheres.
Yeah,
so
there's at least 100 other altcoins out there. So,
solid.
Yeah.
Well,
and
there's
much
also,
better, more efficient. They're faster.
I look at it like this. Okay, have you guys ever seen a Chuck E. Cheese?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's those coins. That's Bitcoin. That's the U.S. money. That's Chinese money. It's basically all Chuck E. Cheese coins. All right, unless you got rides to use them on and stuff to buy with them, they're absolutely pointless.
I still have some Chuck E. Cheese coins around here somewhere.
Tokens.
Oh.
Yeah.
Tokens, coins. It's the same idea.
Fair comparison of Bitcoin versus Chuck E. Cheese.
No, I'm not just Bitcoin. U.S. currency, all of it. It's all the same idea.
Oh, but wait, has Chuck E. Cheese gone digital tokens?
Well, it doesn't matter about. I have no clue. It's all the same idea. They're kicked out to create the need to spend them.
A Chuck E. Cheese coin. It'd be big.
So, here's where it gets interesting. All right. So in the gaming world, like in China, people just play games and sell accounts. So rich people don't really want to spend hundreds of hours mining in order and leveling their character up to like max characters to play something that they really want to. Okay. And so and you can see the same thing with pay to play games or pay to win games. Clash of Clans is a big example. Supercell, they're multi-million, maybe billion-dollar gaming company now because of one game. And what people do, the rich people, they don't want to spend probably what it takes like 5 to 6 years to max out your town, whatever it is. But to max it out, you could probably pay someone. I mean, you could buy all your gems, and if you do that, it will probably cost like $10,000 to $20,000 in coins to do that. But some people actually just play it, level it up, and they sell their accounts to something like around $2,000 to $5,000. And so what basically, just like World of Warcraft was really popular, Chinese players would level up characters, generate as much gold as they can, or things of that nature, find very rare items, they would sell them. And a lot of that was kind of, they started making it illegal because they didn't want people outside making money on Blizzard's game, right? Blizzard wanted to make that money. So there was a lot of work to stop that type of stuff on Blizzard, on the software side. but people, it's still in demand. People who are really into the game, who spent maybe 4 years and thinking, you know what, I'm never gonna really make it my character super powerful, so I'll just go ahead and find an account or find some items, buy it from people, and it'll cost me maybe a couple $100. And so you've got people who all they do is play games, and it's not for fun, but to make money out of it, because there's a demand for certain items and a certain amount of money that just takes time to get. I mean, if you're super rich and you're making basically $500 a day without doing anything, just based on interest, you're gonna, it's worth your time. Like people, for it's time is money, right? So why would you waste so much time playing a game to get to a point where you might not get it? Might as well just spend like $500 on it, which is a day's worth of work, rather than spending like a year or two to actually try and get that by chance. So a lot of it came from gaming, and there's the demand for it, and so that's how digital currency is getting really popular. Digital labor, there you go. So it's
I find it amazing that they'll pay like thousands of dollars for a character in a game.
Oh God, I think it's insane.
Yeah, and League of Legends is also very popular, and you don't need to pay money for anything in that game, but people buy it to buy costumes for their characters. They'll pay like $100 to buy like credits in the game to give your character a new skin.
It's kind of like I don't know if you guys heard. Have you guys seen Rick and Morty?
No, I've tried to get into it. I only watched like an episode or two.
Well, there was this Szechuan sauce thing in the season 3, episode 1 thing, and somebody literally found a pack of the old McDonald's Szechuan sauce sitting in their car from like 15 years ago, and they sold it on eBay for like 15 grand.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stupid shit. Well, like people will like, it's like, look, I have something retarded and it means something to you people, so I'm gonna sell it.
I mean, it's the rarity.
I don't get the point of why people place value in some of these things. Yeah, what the fuck are you thinking?
Just look at stamps from like the 1800s, or maybe a coin from like the 1800s.
Well, at least that's a fucking part of history. This is a pack of sauce that's rotten in a McDonald's container.
Yeah.
Like those old currencies, like way back before we had the federal thing, there was a whole, all the banks in separate areas did their own little local sort of currency things, and right when the bank went bust, all the shit was worthless. It happened over and over and over all over the place. You can find hundreds of old currencies the United States used to have.
Yeah. But like diamonds, like the biggest carats, they'll place a lot of value on that. Even
I don't see the value in diamonds either. It's basically fucking sawdust, or not sawdust, but sandpaper. That's the biggest use for it.
Cool.
Or something pretty to put on somebody's finger.
It's just a formation of carbon atoms. But like black truffles too. I think someone sold the biggest black truffle for something like a couple $100,000. It's just something that grows out in the woods. But yeah, at least people can eat those. And was it the coffee that comes from civet cats poop?
Are you talking about the poop coffee?
The poop coffee? That's the most expensive coffee in the world.
They crap it out.
Yeah.
That's actually a chemical reaction that takes place. They have their stomach acid break it down a little bit, so that changes it, but I still don't want to be drinking shit.
I was going to try it out one time.
I imagine you could have the same effect just by simulating the stomach acid.
Oh my God. Don't even say
it. Minus the poop part. I think that'd be it.
Beans? Do you eat coffee beans?
Say what?
Do you eat coffee beans?
No.
And maybe espresso beans covered in chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen those at the bulk in the grocery store, but yeah.
It's not bad. I'd rather just eat the chocolate.
I'd rather just have the coffee.
That too.
And I'm not a coffee drinker, and somehow civet poop coffee isn't going to lure me in.
Yeah, poop coffee isn't the alluring way to bring people into being coffee drinkers.
Nope.
Here, want a steaming cup of shit?
I wonder how yeah, I don't know if I want to drink it, but I just kind of want to know if it actually tastes good or not.
Would you smell it?
Yeah, I would smell it. Yeah,
it's probably fine. I mean, they do break it apart and get the beans out of the turd and everything like that.
And they wash it and all that stuff.
But it's still that's where it came out of. Yeah. You know where it's been.
My thought process is like, who was the first to try it? It's like, hey, look, there's coffee and poop. Let's make some coffee.
Medicinal.
It was probably because all the coffee beans are gone, and these damn bastards ate it. Well, I'm getting them back. They crapped them out.
Yeah.
Who was the brave pioneer?
Yeah.
Yeah, the brave pioneer. It's like, okay, I really want coffee. Somebody got desperate. That's how that happened. That's how most things happen, where they figure out, we can eat this. They got desperate enough to try.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't until like they used to think tomatoes were poisonous, or like they actually were to a group of people. I think it like exacerbated arthritis and things like that. I forget
the fruit or vegetable.
I believe it's a fruit.
Yeah, I think it's a fruit. There's a lot of fruits that are considered vegetables, but
and watermelons are berries.
I didn't know that one.
Yep, a really, really big berry.
Jeremy Walker says potatoes, not tomatoes. I mean, there are parts of a tomato that are potato that are poisonous, and especially yep. And if you leave your potatoes out in sunlight, if they turn a shade of green, you also don't want to eat that, because that'll also make you sick.
But actually, Kevin was right. I remember hearing years ago, in fact, when I was a kid, about that a long, long time ago, they thought tomatoes were poisonous.
Oh.
I don't know if they actually were to some people or anything like that, but I remember that at one time they thought they were.
It's kind of like milk. Some people can't have it because they're lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same. I mean, people like all around the world, just because of what they've eaten for a long, long time, they do have different methods digestively to break stuff down.
Yeah. My brother's... I'm pretty sure I'm lactose intolerant too. I just seem to handle it better than my brother. My brother's horrible. Like, if he eats cheese, he's just in the bathroom for like hours. But for me, it's fine. It doesn't affect me the way it does my brother. And we share the same genetic background, well, at least 50%.
Genetics are like rolling dice.
Yeah. But like most Koreans, I don't think you're going to see them being lactose tolerant. So it's just weird. Where's Stevie? I kind of hate being the only one on camera.
The whole reason why I say it's like rolling dice is because each gene is like a dice, or no, it's like each dice is like your chance of getting something, but you don't know exactly what it's going to land on.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know if you're going to be a guy or a girl right at first. You don't know if you're going to have a disease or not right at first. You don't know if you're, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Forsaken, what were you saying about Stevie?
Oh, I just said every so often she pops on camera for like 30 seconds and then disappears again.
Yeah.
I think she's going back and forth between chat or something.
Well, it's getting late. I don't think I can stay up much longer. I got solo parental care, so I think I'm gonna call it night. We'll start up again tomorrow night on Saturday. So thanks for showing up, people. Or unless you want to keep it going, Stevie. No. All right. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night, everyone.